name is Cece Van Tine, and I'm calling this annual town meeting, May 8, 2012, to order. We have the benefit this evening of the following Boy Scouts bringing the colors to the stage: Sam Grant, Mike Maduro, Mike Anzavino, Henry Lutz, and Devin Burns. Gentlemen, and folks, when the last of you come in, can you please close the doors behind you? This evening, in lieu of the Pledge of Allegiance, we're very fortunate to have Gabriella Senior Relay here to sing our national anthem. You've all risen, so I don't need to invite you to rise.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Or say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much.
Madam Moderator, I move to waive the reading of the warrant and the return of the warrant.
Second? All those in favor? Sounds like a majority to me. Good evening. I'm sorry as I futz with the microphone a little bit. As the first order of business, I'd like to make the introductions. Do let me know if you're having a difficult time hearing me. To my left is the town clerk, Mr. Sean Dooley. Next to him is the assistant town clerk, Carol Green. At the next table down, we have town council, who is Joyce Frank. Next to her, we have two representatives from the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Jim Lehan and Mr. Rob Garrity. And beyond them, we have the town administrator, Mr. Jack Hathaway. Down in front of us, we have the advisory committee, who I'm going to ask the chair, Mr. Pat Sneed, to introduce.
The other members of the advisory committee, starting at the end, Arlie Sterling, Angela Wayne, Lisa Curl, Art Kronsack, Mark Walzman, Al Butter, Rick Stillman, our administrative assistant, Sue Jacobson, and missing tonight is Dave Better.
Thank you. So just by way of brief introduction, I'm sure I'll miss things and then sort of add them in as we go. I just wanted to touch upon some of the procedures that we have here at town meeting. The first procedure I'm sure most of you are familiar with, and that is the yes and no microphone. There had been some suggestion a few weeks back by the Board of Selectmen that we do away with the yes or no microphone. They felt it impeded attendance. I think they're wrong, but more to the point, I think that the yes and no microphone are important. If an issue is important to you and there's 17 people at the yes microphone and you think no, and there's no one at the no microphone, well then maybe this system will motivate you to get up and speak. In addition, if we've been listening to 30 minutes of diatribe on a particular article, there are still 27 people for yes, nobody at no. It might motivate someone to move the article. So the yes and the no microphones stay. If you are in favor of an article, please go to the yes microphone to make your speech. If you are against it, go to the no microphone. We've done away with the question motion microphone. It sort of seemed to get in everybody's way. So dealer's choice, if you have a question or a motion to make, you can go to either microphone, whatever's closer to you. If you do have a motion, motions need to be within the scope of the article so that folks who looked at the warrant and decided not to come tonight are not surprised. In addition, they need to be in writing. We have orange sheets here at my feet. So come on up and grab a motion form if you'd like to make a motion, and we'll decide whether or not we'll hear that motion based upon whether or not it's in the scope. That's what town council is for. Also, when you come to a microphone to speak, pursuant to the bylaws that you voted for the bylaw committee, you voted for me and I appointed the bylaw committee, the bylaws are pretty clear. You have 2 chances at the microphone within a motion. So if every article is a motion, you have 2 times at the microphone. First time you may speak for 5 minutes, no more. Second time you may speak for 3 minutes, no more. If you have 1 question, that takes up your first time at the mic. You don't get to add more time. I recommend if you have a series of questions, you ask your series of questions, and then at the end, someone will answer all of those questions for you. In addition, whenever you come to a microphone, please introduce yourself, first and last name, clearly so it can be recorded for the minutes, as well as your street address within the town. The only time visitors may speak is if they are invited to speak because they are speaking on an article. They are giving information or answering a question that a voter has put. If there is a motion within the motion, so there's a motion before the meeting and then somebody moves to amend or moves to change something, you get your additional 2 bites at that microphone apple. I think that's it. I'm sure I forgot something. Without further ado, Article 2.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve the expenditure of $380 from the current year Selectmen's expense budget for the payment of 2 postage bills from fiscal year 2010 and 2011. First off, this seems a bit odd for those who haven't been at a town meeting before, but one of the quirks of Massachusetts state law, it says that in any town, you do not have the ability to pay a bill that was incurred in a prior and closed fiscal year. Only town meeting and nobody else has that authority. So anytime anything, even as minor as this, comes forward from a prior year, it has to go before town meeting. As I understand from the Selectman's office, this was 2 charges from the post office that apparently they never really bothered to tell us that we owed until a couple of weeks ago, and thus now we are forced to bring it to town meeting to get them paid.
Would anybody like to speak on Article 2? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those, this requires a 4/5 vote, by the way. All of those in favor of approval of Article 2, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. The ayes carry it. Article 3.
Were copies of this out? Did they pick up copies of this? Okay, this there should have been copies available outside if you want to try and follow along. Madam Moderator, I move to transfer $160,283.98 from Finance Department salaries, $16,000, facilities salary, oh geez, I should have brought my glasses, $2,500, fire salaries, $9,000, DPW administrative expense, $2445.05, grounds maintenance shade tree, $2,000, election expense, $4,000, employee benefits, $124,338.93, for a total of $160,283.98, and that amount, those amounts be transferred to Finance Department expense, $6,000, election salary, $4,000, Facilities expense, $10,000. Fire department expense, $9,000. Building department salary, $4,000. Building department expense, $500. Animal control salary, $169. Vehicle maintenance salary, $1,749.66. Snow and ice, $66,263.19. Vehicle maintenance, building repair, $3,000. Cemetery salary, $695.39. And the advisory board reserve fund, $54,906.74, for a total transfer to of $160,283.98. You want me to go through the entire motion?
You might as well.
Okay. And I move to transfer $4,584.37 from the snow and ice revolving account, and that same amount transferring to the snow and ice budget. And I move to transfer a total of $75,000 from the water department budget salaries to the water department budget expense, and to transfer $88,000 from the prison mitigation funds to the Norfolk Public Schools for playground repairs, $52,800. Fire department expenses for life pack and other equipment, $14,700. And the transfer station compactors, $20,500.
Second.
Okay, again, this is an annual item that we do. Also, per state law, in order to move monies between two salary groups, two budget groups, one being salaries, two expenses, on budgets that were approved at a prior town meeting, only town meeting has the authority to make those transfers. So that's why you're seeing things like from a finance department salary to a finance department expense. Obviously, the big source of funds that you see on here is the employee benefits line, and that's being used to finance a number of different budgets that are running short. In particular, and fairly startling certainly to me when I saw it, was the fact that this year, of all years, we ran a fairly substantial snow and ice deficit. Does anybody remember any snow and ice at all? That shows you how little we budget annually on the snow and ice. But through this process, we have the ability to cover that. The rest are fairly straightforward. The last three items, big ticket items that we're appropriating out of prison mitigation funds. Traditionally, we've used this state authorization of these prison mitigation funds for capital items only. Continuing that tradition here. The first one being the money for the school playground equipment at the day school. If you're facing the school, as many of you know, there's new playground equipment that exists in the back of the building that was built on conservation land. But those have been there facing the school on the left side. There's playground equipment there that was, I believe, original to when the school, or at least the first phase of that school was built. And that is not, we'll say it's not ADA compliant. It's probably not in any way, shape, or form compliant. So there is a plan to improve that playground equipment. We are appropriating money to buy additional life packs and some other firefighters' equipment. And the last item is we will be appropriating money, if approved, to add additional compactors at the transfer station, which will allow that department to actually better market some of the materials that they currently take and save costs. When you think about it, some of that plastic, when that bin gets filled, we have to haul that to where we sell those plastics. That means it goes on the back of the truck. That means the truck has to spend whatever gas it takes. By compacting that materials, we can cut down on the number of trips that full bin now needs to take. I don't have to tell you what the price of gas is these days. It was demonstrated to us that there are a lot of positive impacts from adding these additional compactors. So that's what we're asking for on that $20,000+ item.
Is there anyone who'd like to question or comment on Article 3? Seeing nobody at the microphones, all of those in favor of approval of Article 3, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Majority was required. Article 4.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 4 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Again, this is a standard item. What this article does is, within the budget, we have a number of positions in the town's budget that are not under a collective bargaining agreement. So annually, what we do for these positions is we adjust the compensation schedule. In other words, it means that people within that pay range, all of the pay grades will move up. It's built into the budget. It's a 1.5% increase. It's available to anybody. And we have a significant number of employees within this category that have maxed out on their step increases. So that means the only raise that they are eligible to get is this 1.5% because they have no additional steps in front of them. And again, the budget numbers that you are going to hear under the next article already contain this increase.
Anyone with a question or comment relative to Article 4? Seeing no one on a microphone, majority is required. All of those in favor of approval of Article 4 as written in the warrant, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Article 5, the budget article.
Madam Moderator, I move to fix the compensation of the elected position of town clerk at $60,500 as provided for by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 108, for the fiscal year commencing on July 1, 2012, and to raise and appropriate $32,134,316, and to transfer $24,000 from cemetery receipts reserved for appropriation, and to transfer $198,000 from free cash for a total appropriation of $32,356,316. And, whoops, I forgot something. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the last of it.
So it's been seconded, almost prematurely. Yes?
This budget represents approximately $1.5 million increase. Property taxes were up about $1 million this year. It's been the best year for increased revenues that the town has seen in several years, and gave us the opportunity to make up for some lost ground in various areas. In addition to the $1 million in property taxes, we also got about $150,000 from other sources of revenue, such as the transfer station, and also roughly an additional $100,000 from the state. As you might expect, a good chunk of this money went to the schools. In terms of the actual appropriation, about $550,000. But in addition, because of our solar array and a consolidation of electrical costs, primarily for accounting purposes, the town has taken on the cost of electricity at the new Kennedy Freeman School, I should say, and that amounts to about $200,000 a year. So the way that's reflected in the budget is that...
Sorry, it's all day school too.
Pardon me?
It's both schools, I just don't want...
Oh, okay, both elementary schools, sorry. There will be more information on that later. The other major increases, public safety is getting a little over $250,000. Police officer that we were not able to add last year has been added this year, and that most of the rest of that is just negotiated pay increases. So those are the major items. I believe that there will be a presentation regarding more detail in the budget, but that's the bulk of what's happened in this past year, or what will be happening this coming year if this budget is approved.
Thank you. Now, again, as a housekeeping measure, what we're going to have now are presentations. There was an organizational meeting, as there is before every town meeting, 2 weeks prior to town meeting, to determine how much time people are going to speak. Everybody who has an interest in speaking is invited to attend. If they choose not to attend, they get what I give them. Jack Hathaway attended, and so he is getting 10 to 15 minutes to discuss the budget. In addition, there's representatives from King Philip and from the Norfolk Elementary School who will also speak. They each have 5 minutes budgeted. But first to Mr. Hathaway, and then I'll discuss the hold.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. This presentation will be relatively similar to previous years. I'm going to just give you some information about our revenues, talk about our expenses at a high level, and certainly when we get to the budget line items, more than willing to answer any questions you have. Sorry the screen's a little bit dark, but this shows you our FY12 revenues, and where we have $21 million, $21.4 million in taxes. That shows you that we're more than 3/4 of our revenue comes from real estate and personal property taxes. We have local receipts, which is building permits, fines and forfeits, motor vehicle excise taxes. That makes $2.6 million. We have state aid, both on the education and they used to call it the lottery aid, they call it general government aid now, at $3.8 million. And then we had $24,000 of money in one of our local accounts that we transferred to the operating budget. 2013 doesn't look that much different. The numbers grow a little bit, but the relative share is about the same, $22.4 million in real estate taxes, $2.7 million in local receipts. We're up to $3.9 million. We've seen an uptick in building permits and hopefully motor vehicle excise taxes, so I'm encouraging everybody to go out and buy some new cars. We're seeing motor vehicle excise tax go up, and then as Mr. Sneed talked about, we have $222,000. Most of that is in our free cash that we're transferring, and that's unfortunately that takes about 198 of about $212,000 of our free cash that we have available. What does the budget look like? Again, 2012. Again, we need to get a brighter projector apparently, but 67% of our budget represents education. That's both the elementary school, King Philip, includes Tri-County now is over $500,000, and then Norfolk County school is about $6,000. We have public safety making up 16% of our budget. General government 7%. Human services, which would be like the Council on Aging, is 1% of our budget, and not just Council on Aging. There's some other departments in there too. 3% culture and recreation, so that's going to be the library and the recreation department. And then the remainder is the DPW, which is about 6%, including the transfer station, highway, grounds, motor vehicles. So we go down to 2013. Again, not much, really, the percentages stayed identical. 67% of our budget goes to education. I should say I didn't include any of our debt in either of these comparisons. Most of our debt is for the construction of the elementary schools, the King Philip, and the junior high school. But we're just looking at operating expenses here. As one of the new, very interesting, and going to be very beneficial components of our budget is the energy costs. What happened before we built the solar array up at the transfer station is, this is my big mean version of NSTAR up here in the corner. They're going to send us 2.1 million kilowatts of power, and that's my town hall, but that's that's town hall, library, senior center, the elementary schools, DPW, and public safety. And in exchange for that, we're going to send them $390,000. What happens next year is now we have three different components of the picture. We have the solar array, and we're going to have some tours, if not this summer, this coming fall. So we're going to take, I think Bob McGee's talked about taking people out on kind of a horse and carriage ride out around the solar array, which I think would be a nice event. Hopefully we can combine that with a touch a truck day so you can see all the vehicles. But we have a solar array that optimally will generate 2 million kilowatts of power. That ultimately will go to NSTAR, or the grid. We still are going to purchase 1 million kilowatts of power from NSTAR. And that's going to now cost us $126,000. So what happens is we end up paying for the energy We have a deal with Constellation Energy who runs the solar array, and then we end up getting credits on our monthly bills, which will generate $264,000 of a net benefit to the town. Now, we've made some adjustments for this in the budget. We haven't connected, NSTAR hasn't made that final connection between the array and the grid yet, so we're going to wait until the fall until we get that connection done. We actually see the monthly bills and get a good, we can see have some experience with the bills, see how they get allocated among all the departments, and then we'll come back in the fall, and the plan is to make some reductions in some of our budgets to realize that benefit. As we talked a little bit about, we're taking the electricity costs out of the elementary school budget. So the elementary school had a $9.4 million appropriation in 2012. It's gone up to $9.557 million this year. In addition, now the electricity that used to be paid for out of this budget is now being paid for out of the facilities budget at the town level. And it's, we're trying to be also consistent with all the other departments in town. We pay all the facilities costs out of the facilities budget. So we're going to have $200,000. So you can see, not very well, but you can see down at the bottom here, the elementary school, to cover their total costs, they go from $9.4 million to $9.757 million, or an increase of 3.72%. And again, we'll have to look at that in the fall to see what the savings are and see if we can make some adjustments based on our savings from the solar array. Oh, there's a better slide of the same information. I forgot I improved that. So. One thing that always comes up more in Norfolk Net than anywhere else is just our tax rate and the increasing tax rate. So here are some facts. I've shared this on, I think Jim and I shared this on cable TV a couple of times. But just to give you a few of the numbers off of here. We go from a tax rate in 2003. I'm getting to reach that age now, too, where I got to stretch my arms out. We go from a tax rate of 1301, and we had an actual tax rate of 1301. If we didn't have any debt exclusions, so each town meeting or at an election, we vote to exempt some project from the limitations of Proposition 2.5. So at that point, we had the elementary, one of the H. Olive Day School and some smaller projects. We would have had a tax rate of 1259. You can see here we've added, in 2005, we added the library. 2006 and 2007, we added the high school. 2011, we added the Freeman Kennedy School. So now our tax rate as property value, a combination of budgets going up, property values going down these last few years. The tax rate without these debt exclusions would be $14.79. With the debt exclusions that we have a $2.4 million budget just to pay for the debt this year. The tax rate would be $16.47. It's 11.5% difference. Back in 2003, it was a 3% difference. So the 2013 outlook, some of the unknowns still. Local aid. We think we have a pretty good idea of local aid. That's obviously the number that we get from the state. It's gone through the House of Ways and Means budget now. It's with the Senate. We think we're going to get about a $100,000 increase. Prison mitigation, Representative Winslow has done a great job pushing forward and having amendments, trying to restore our prison mitigation. We did receive $88,000 this year. We're hoping to get back up in that $380,000 range that we had a few years ago. The snow and ice deficit, we covered that tonight, which is great because we weren't able to do that last year, so we had to actually cover it out of the 2012 budget, the 2011 deficit. So that's closed, and we don't have to worry about that this fall. Capital, we're going to, other than those relatively minor items that we covered in the transfers, we're going to talk about capital in the fall. We'll have the benefit of, again, that electricity money. I know the schools, the elementary school has a long list of capital items to deal with. I know my departments have a long list of capital items, and I know King Philip has capital requests to make too. So we're going to deal with that in the fall. We're going to try and fund that with one-time revenues and not use any of those one-time revenues that we may receive and plug them into the budget. And again, one more time, the electricity budget, we have adjustments to the budget in the fall, and we hope to realize those savings at that time. Highlights just from my, the departmental budgets. Pat actually talked about that. I think the police department, it's critical. We've seen a 10% increase in residents since 2000, and I think it's 1995 actually. But we have less police officers than we did at that time. We lost an officer 3 years ago. We're trying to restore that officer. We're also trying to prepare for, if you watch any of the selectmen's meetings, we have a police force that is 5 to 8 years, a good number of those officers are 5 to 8 years away from retirement. We need to build up, some of the younger crew and be prepared for that. So we're going back up to 17 officers. Everywhere else, we're maintaining the same number of staff we have at the current time. So that's very quick in a nutshell. Happy to answer questions when we get to the line items, and I appreciate your time.
Nicely done, under the 10 minutes. Next, from Norfolk Elementary, Dr. Jackson, Superintendent of Schools. Interim.
Thank you. I want to begin by thanking the selectmen tonight and Mr. Tomaszewski for their efforts this year to try to find money for the public schools, and I am very, very grateful for everything they have done, and also for the fact that the town is sharing some of the prison mitigation money with the public schools in order for us to replace the playground at the HOD school, which is, as Mr. Sneed mentioned, out of compliance and has been there since the school opened about 17 years ago. So thank you very much. I just want to point out that over the past 6 years, as you will recall from last year, the school budget has decreased, as all of your budgets have. And the impact on the public schools, since it is the biggest portion of the town's budget, has been difficult. In fact, just the facts that I've put here are kind of stunning, and that is that in 2007, 2008, the budget was $9.6 million, and the projected budget is $9.5 million for next year. So if you think about all of the time that has passed and the increases that have been borne by all of us, this has been serious. Since that time, you might be interested to know that student enrollment has dropped 10.6%. That was 1,083 students in 2007, 2008, and today there are 968 students in the elementary schools in Norfolk. I think that also is a reflection of the recession. Since that time, however, professional staff, that is teachers, have dropped 24.8%. In 2007, 2008, there were 99 teachers in the Norfolk Public Schools. Today, there are 75. I'm not going to spend much time on most of these details. Mr. Hathaway did describe how the town was able to help us, but even after that assistance on the part of the town, the schools will be required to deduct $442,399 from our budget. And the challenge for the school committee this year has been enormous, and it has been how to cut another $442,000 from the budget, even as we're trying to turn things around and bring things back up. So the next slide shows you where we are making those cuts. We are cutting professional staff for about $214,000. That includes teachers, 3 teachers, and some aides. We're reducing clerical staff. In the schools, we are reducing the secretaries in the main offices and eliminating a position, a part-time position at the central office. We are eliminating materials, books, textbooks, etc., reducing professional development, increasing revenue largely due to solar purchases that we can make back. We're hoping for $30,000, but we're planning on 15, and that's partly included in that increased revenue. And all of our non-union employees this year will take a 0. Last year, all of the teachers and the administrators took a 0 in their contracts, and town employees have taken 0s. And the last group in the town of Norfolk, as far as I know, that did not absorb a 0% increase at some point along the line in the past several years, will do so in the coming year. And that will give us the $442,399 that we currently need. And so that brings us to the end of this brief presentation. I want to thank you on behalf of the teachers for your support and the children of Norfolk. I'm very proud to tell you that while the budget has decreased over the past numbers of years, the quality of instruction and the quality of the teachers of the Norfolk Public Schools is very hard to be matched. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, with 5 minutes, is a representative from King Philip.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Liz Zielinski. I'm the superintendent of King Philip, and I just want to take a few minutes to talk to you about our request for budget from Norfolk on your assessment piece. The first thing I want to let you know is that right up front, the King Philip School Committee committed to including the same level of excess and deficiency amount to the operating budget right off the top. So that money was placed in. As you know, over the course of the years, we do have some excess and deficiencies that's similar to your stabilization or your free cash account that a regional district must maintain for those emergency pieces that come up. And we are applying that. The money is obviously decreasing with that, and the district has been using E&D to actually continue to provide top quality teachers to your students by using that E&D account to fund them. So I just want to let you know up front. Okay. So our initial request for our FY13 operating budget was about $28.3. And what we ended up doing is that was a request for if we could have what we needed to really move forward, also meet all the state mandates. That was the initial request. The school committee approved a level service budget that is maintaining the current services that your students need, that you're receiving at KP. And the budget, so there were some reductions that we're taking for some of those requests. I just wanted to sort of show you that. So the first cut was about, from our initial request, was $930,000. So we got to an approved and adopted level service budget by the school committee on February 6th, 27.4. From that 27.4, we made further reductions, really working very diligently with all 3 of our sending towns on making sure we know who our new students are coming in, who have out-of-district tuitions. Healthcare premium savings, working down with the healthcare. They had initially given us a 17% increase on healthcare, have it down to 9.4. Funding that we've received, we've worked on some circuit breaker funding there. Transportation savings, regular and special ed. Regional transportation reimbursement, Chapter 70 aid. Those are 2 numbers that are not hard and fast yet because we don't have the final numbers from the state. But those were some of the initial numbers that they had given us, and so we're relying on those. And some general contractual savings. So we further slashed that budget by $1.4 million. And so we had a new balance of, that's okay, of $25,961,487. Okay. Now, what that means is that we have to still go further in other reductions which will affect and will impact student learning. Some of those include middle school students having 2 studies a day, an increase in class size, science labs, fewer electives, and phasing out of some programs because of the budget, the tightness of the budget. Thanks. And so that new balance there, there's a reduction of teacher assistants, It says new, these are, we're trying to manage some special ed incoming costs, as well as 9.9 current teaching positions. What you may not realize is this was the last year that we had the Edge Jobs Bill, which was $430,000, so that money is gone, so that cliff was, we're at that cliff. And so we further reduced it by $663,000 for a new balance of 25,297. And I know that this number may not jive with the original one, but I think that there's maybe a motion on the floor to help us get to that number. What that would mean if we can get to that number, which is really important, is that we would hopefully not have, we won't have double studies for middle school students, so that we 2 studies a day. On the overall budget, which I think is what people really want to know, the overall increase of our request from last year's
30
budget.
seconds.
Oh, sure, is 2.3% is the overall increase from last year's budget, and the increase to Norfolk's assessment with this request is 6.9 to your assessment, but the overall budget is just 2.3. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I understand that a young man has also come from King Philip. He just wanted to make a brief comment. He's a student who's the student representative on the school committee, correct?
Correct.
You could please introduce yourself and make your comment.
All right. Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Gordon Winget. Like Madam Moderator said, I am the student representative of King Philip on the school committee. Tonight, I am speaking on behalf of the students in the high school and the middle school. I want to stress that the final vote you all come to tonight will greatly affect the students. Without this budget approval, class sizes will increase, certain electives will be cut, and double study halls in the middle school as well as the high school will occur. Presently, the environment at KP is positive and supporting. If the proposed increase to KP's budget is approved, I believe that this positive and supporting environment we now have will continue for the students, and KP will continue to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very well spoken. All right, so now we're to the actual budget. And what we've done in years past and what we're going to do this year is what's called, typically referred to as a hold. So what I'm going to do, if you all can take a peek at your warrants, you'll find the second page of the budget, the fiscal 2013 general fund budget, consists of essentially 6 pages of entries, of line items, but they are categories. And so what I am going to do is I'm going to go through each category. If no one has an issue with that category, I'll pause. If nobody says hold, I'll move on to the next category. For every category that no one says hold, when I get to the end, we'll take a vote on those entrants. And then we'll go back and we'll deal with whatever one someone said hold on. So now with respect to the hold. So if I read moderator, someone can yell out hold. I'll inquire of their name and their street for the record, and we'll move on to the next category. Then we will come back to the beginning and address all of the entrants that someone put a hold on, all the things that someone was interested in talking about, we will then address, and we won't have to address any of the ones that no one was interested in talking about. So, without further ado, beginning on the first page of the fiscal general fund budget, which is page 2 of 6 of the budget, is there a hold on the category moderator? Is there a hold on the category selectman/town administrator? Is there a hold on the category advisory? Name, please. Is there a hold on municipal finance? Is there a hold on Board of Assessors? Is there a hold on Town Council? I will, by the way, go back and ask at the end if somebody wants to throw out another hold. So it's not a speak now yet. Is there a hold on the Personnel Board? $0. Is there a hold on information technology? Is there a hold on tax title/foreclosure? Is there a hold on facilities management? I hear a hold. Andrea Langhauser, do I have that right? I just see the top of your head, but I recognize your part. Is that not appropriate to say? I could say that. Andrews. So there's a hold on facilities management. Next page. Is there a hold on town clerk elections voter registration? Is there a hold on conservation? Is there a hold on planning board? Zoning Board of Appeals? Planning and development? Permanent Building Commission? Town reports? Under the heading of public safety, is there a hold on police? Is there a hold on fire and ambulance? Ambulance billing? Building department? Weight and measure? No hold. Emergency management? Animal inspector? Animal control? Fire/police commission? Under education, is there a hold on Norfolk Elementary? Is there a hold on King Philip Regional Operating? Is there a hold on Norfolk Agricultural School? Is there a hold on Tri-County? Public Works? DPW administration? Highway? Vehicle maintenance? Grounds municipal? Grounds cemetery? Custodian of veteran graves? Next page. Tree warden? Shade tree? On shared fixed costs, road program? Landfill? Snow and ice? Street lighting? Town vehicle fuel? Next, transfer station. Under human services, do I have a hold on Board of Health? Special programs? Council on Aging? Veterans Services is the next entry. Do I hold? I know you're all flipping your page. I want you to catch up. Do I have a hold on Veterans Services? Under Culture and Recreation, Library, Recreation, Historical Commission, Memorial Day. Then I also have, under fixed costs, employee benefits and building liability insurance. So we'll just do fixed costs. Is there a hold on fixed costs? And then finally, on the next page is water division. The debt service? I do need to do, okay, the debt service. Is there a hold on any of the debt service? And now I can flip?
Water's a separate article.
Oh, it is a separate article? I wasn't sure because it's kind of attached. All right, well, there you go. Now, there have been 2 or 3 holds, 2 holds. Does anybody else have a hold that they've now thought they want to hold?
Madam Moderator, just as a point of information, anyone who's looking at the version of the warrant that came with our recommendations, the King Philip amount has changed since then. It is $93,420 higher. If you're looking at a budget that you picked up on the way in or what you've seen off the internet, those will be current. But this particular item,
So the
King Philip.
the warrant that was available outside and the warrant that's available online is correct?
they have been updated.
Okay.
But since this was done at a point in time.
I think the ones outside are from the warrant.
Oh, they are?
Why don't you just
Oh, I
read
thought they were, okay.
Okay, so they were not correct. Sit tight, David.
I thought those were more recent. The King Philip amount is $93,420 higher than what is printed
So what's the figure? Because math is not...
I didn't bring my calculator, so
Oh.
does anybody have one that can do the math quickly?
Jim Lehan's doing it in his head. I didn't hear.
Patty, you're talking about 331,622?
Yes.
That number is now 425,042.
425,042 is the increase, but then the absolute amount would have that same amount. Could you say that louder?
656, 8365. You get it right? Take the education for it.
6,568,365. 6,568,365.
Mr. Rosenberg, name and street address.
David Rosenberg, 123 North Street. I'd like to add two holds. I'll try and...
Is it working now?
Okay, my name is David Rosenberg, 123 North Street, and I would like to add two holds, one on information technology and one on street lighting.
Let me circle those. All right. So currently we have, oh, okay, 4 holds. The advisory, information technology, facilities management, and street lighting. Any other holds? Hearing none. Let's deal first with everything we didn't hold. All of those in favor of approval of those sections of the budget not held, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? It is unanimous, a majority was required. Now let's address the holds. As to the advisory, anybody like to speak in favor or against approval of so much of the budget that is on the second page of the budget relative to advisory?
Marguerite Kevorkian Berkner, Wampanoag Avenue. It's really more of a question why the expenses are up if we're no longer printing and mailing the warrant.
Can someone from advisory answer that question? Feel free to identify yourself to the audience.
Sue Jacobson. We are still mailing postcards, and we are still printing a large number of warrants. So we still do have some significant expenses with photocopying, postage for the postcard mailing. This postcard mailing postage is $1,300 alone. That didn't include the copying of the postcards. And we do have some office supplies that we're required to purchase that we need throughout the year.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question or comment relative to the section of the budget marked advisory? Seeing no one at the microphone, I'm just going to work each hold individually. I think that makes the most sense. All of those in favor of approval of the advisory budget, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? It is unanimous. The next hold was information technology. Anybody like to speak to information technology?
I'm David Rosenberg, 123 North Street, and this is a question. Is this mic on? Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. This is a question, not an objection, but I see that it went up appreciably, 42.9% increase, and I was hoping for an explanation of what's happening in information technology that would cause such a dramatic increase.
Great question. Not enough is happening. If you remember 4 years ago, we eliminated the IT director's position, and so right now we're going out to bid, and then we hired a local gentleman, but he only gives us about 20 hours of time per month, and it's just not, and so That amount is in the old expense number, plus all of the expenses for servers and computers and paying for our website licenses and all that. So we realized that we've gotten to the point where we've really put ourselves at risk a little bit. So we're going out to bid on a more robust service. Also looking at sharing, one of the other alternatives is sharing expertise with the elementary schools. So, but either of those combinations is, we were only paying $1,200 a month in IT services, and we need something a little more robust to maintain. Public safety services systems have a pretty complex system. That's our biggest exposure. But yeah, on top of that, our treasury, assessors, and fund accounting, we need to make sure we're safe. So we felt it was appropriate to increase that.
Any other questions or comments relative to information technology? Seeing no one at the microphone, just regarding information technology, all of those in favor of approval of this line item, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. A majority was required. Next, facilities manager. Does anybody like to come up and have a question or a comment relative to this section of line items?
Andrea Langhauser, Noon Hill. I think it's just an inability to read the budget. When I just saw a large facilities management expense, and I was just wondering what it amounted to. Maybe it's explained by having all these other line items later on in the budget, and I just didn't realize that. And then I thought it was unusual that salary actually went down.
So is there someone who can answer what appear to be two questions from Ms. Langhauser relative to why the salary went down, and if indeed the box that contains the information that equals $690,000 is the $690,000 in the budget?
I'm not sure that microphone works.
Mine? Does mine work?
No, yours works fine.
That's all that matters.
It does. So Andrew, I think you've already answered part down the bottom, the informational box, but we've got two new line items, $100,000 for the solar generation. That is the process of us paying for the solar that's generated. We pay $100,000, but then we get $360,000 of credits back. So, but we have to have a line item to pay for that $100,000. And then the $200,000 in the elementary school, we've added them to the kind of the collective facilities department, and we're paying for that electricity out of that line item. So that's that's $300,000 of the $337,000 increase. The salary, I can't answer that off the top of my head, although I know we've had overtime in there for the facilities manager who responds whether it's any of the facilities have a problem over the weekend or at night. He has to come out and resolve that issue. I think we've trimmed that a little bit. It's not a significant number that I think matters in the big scheme.
Are there any other questions or comments relative to facilities management? Seeing no one at a microphone, relating just to facilities management, approval of that section, all of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. The final hold on the budget, flip forward to page 5 of 6 of the budget, is street lighting.
David Rosenberg, 123 North Street. In past town meetings, I've raised an issue that when I've driven through town late at night, the lights are very bright, and it sort of looks like I'm coming into an airport for a landing and all the runways are lit. And when I've raised that issue in the past, the response has been, there were contractual issues, they'll look into it, they'll investigate, they'll see if some of the lights could be dimmed or something. And recently, it seems to me the lights are still bright, and I was hoping for an update on any progress that either has been made or could be made about reducing the intensity of the lighting and reducing the cost of the lighting.
All right, do you have a question, or is it more of a, perhaps you want to ask your question and they can bundle the answers? We'll give it a shot.
Okay.
Jim Gietfried, 34 Robin Road. I had a question regarding streetlights on the consideration in the future of using solar-powered streetlights. I raised this that they do it at, for example, at UMass Amherst. There is a cost savings to that, and I wondered whether or not either selectmen or the planning board were considering, as developers have to put in these items, would be looking into that as a means of reducing our cost. Previously, when I was selectman, we were spending about $10 a month per streetlight. And we also, at that time, had NSTAR put in, was maybe another utility at that time, put in as well dimming lights so that they reduced when there was no light coming at them from the cars, and then they increased when the lights hit the area. So it was a means of reducing the amount of electricity for that. I had two other issues regarding electricity. I didn't know when I could talk about electricity in the budget and where that was, because the town administrator said I could ask a question on that, and I didn't see where. I had a question regarding the electricity that's being generated from the solar panels, and I think it's good that we're not looking at what the dollars are now and putting into the budget. I give it one example.
Just ignore me.
Just ignore it. So what I found was that, for example, in Denmark, where most of their energy is generated by either wind turbine or solar, that there are times of the day in which they produce this and they sell it to other countries, and the value is very minimal. It's maybe at pennies that they get back on it. And so when it's at peak demand and when they need it, it costs them a great deal more to buy the electricity from these other countries. So I was wondering, as we're looking at this, have we gotten a fixed amount of money that we're going to get, or is it going to be dependent on when we generate it and when it's being considered as peak time or non-peak time? And lastly, on electricity, was the question about the underground wires that we have in town. We have been paying that through our energy bill, 3%, and I wanted to know when that is going to be up and no longer will we be paying that. Thank you.
So it sounds like we have a question that's kind of can be answered from the standpoint that we're looking to find out about solar-powered streetlights, also perhaps dimming the streetlights. What's going on with making the streetlights more efficient, and then perhaps the solar energy questions. Rob Garrity, are you up?
Hold on. Please, Madam Moderator. Okay. Starting, Rob Garrity, Board of Selectmen, Boardman Street. Mr. Giffrey, Madam Moderator, starting from the final question first, there will be an update at the next Board of Selectmen's meeting regarding the undergrounding. Jack has started looking at how much is actually in that account, how much they've paid us back that they've collected from all of you on your electricity and telephone bills. So there will be an update on that soon. As to solar-powered streetlights, that hasn't been discussed, but there are LED streetlights which are more efficient. There's a capital issue involved. Anytime you do these. The LED streetlights, for instance, are $586 or thereabouts a unit, and that's a significant cost. So, as you know, we're capitally constrained at the moment. There is an energy committee that is meeting, and now that the solar array is up and running, I'm sure there's going to be other things they want to take on, including they're already looking at town hall lighting, so street lighting can be one of those issues. I believe every other street light is dimmed or turned off starting at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock, Mr.? All right, well, I'm not certain with the time, but every other street light is dimmed currently. And as for the solar power, it's not a time-of-day contract. We don't do, at least Norfolk's contracts aren't time-of-day based either for usage or for the generation.
Any other questions relative to street lighting? Seeing no one at the microphone, relative to street lighting line item, all of those in favor of approval of the budget, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? It is unanimous. Budget question is done. Article 6.
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer the sum of $1,593,315 from the Department of Public Works Water Division revenues and retained earnings to fund the Water Division's maintenance and operating expenses and the Water Division debt for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2012 as follows. Salaries, $253,207. Expenses, $773,504. Total maintenance and operating expenses, $893,463. That's the sum of the two numbers just read. Actually, the total does not, there's a typo in the total, but the grand total is correct. Debt service, $566,604. The total Water Division budget is $1,593,315. This budget is funded by the users of town water. It's not anything to do with the town's operating budget. The budget proposed here is exactly the same as the budget last year, so there's no proposal to increase the water rates, nor is there any need to increase revenues. Expenses are exactly the same as last year.
All right, are there any questions or comments, pro or con, relative to Article 6, which is the water budget that precedes it in the warrant? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 6 as written and read, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? It is unanimous. Article 7. Oh, Article 7 is me. I'm waiting. Oh, it's me. What do you know? All right, so first order of business under Article 7 is I'm going to read to you some commissions and their members and ask you to approve all of them when I'm done. And then some people are going to make some committee reports to you, and then you can ask questions, and it's just going to be generally a lot of fun for everybody. So the committees that we currently have: Cultural Council, 9 members. ADA Compliance Committee has 5 members, plus the town administrator, who's an ex officio and non-voting member. The Insurance Advisory with 5 members. Zoning Bylaw Study Committee with 7 members, 3 appointed by the Board of Selectmen, 1 member designee each from the Planning Board, Board of Health, Conservation Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals. Town Council and the Building Commissioner are ex officio and non-voting. Corrections Advisory Committee has 3 members. Economic Development Committee has 7 members jointly appointed by the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board. Public Safety Building Commission has 4 members appointed by the Board of Selectmen, plus the Police Chief, Fire Chief, Town Administrator, 1 member of the Board of Selectmen and the Building Commissioner, ex officio and non-voting. School Building Committee, 5 members appointed by the Board of Selectmen, plus 2 members of the School Committee, the School Superintendent, the Town Administrator, and the Building Commissioner, ex officio and non-voting. All of those in favor of approval of those commissions, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's a good point right now to say that if any of you are interested in volunteering for any of the wonderful committees that we have, just go to the virtualnorfolk.org, and all of the information is located there. Now, on to the committee reports. The first report tonight is from the Downtown Development Committee, represented by Mr. Jim Lehan. He has 10 minutes and 35 seconds. That's what he told me he could do it in, so that's what he has. And go.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Is this working? Okay. Good evening. I have to wear these, otherwise I'd be holding it on the table out there, so bear with me. In a few minutes, we're going to share with you a video that illustrates a strategic plan for our downtown center. But before we begin, let me share with you some of the background as to why we're here tonight. Many of you, if not all of you, have had some curiosity as to what might lie ahead for our downtown center. We've probably all heard some rumors, one or another. Trader Joe's is coming, or as Norfolk Net proclaimed one morning that there would be new roundabouts on Boardman Street. My personal favorite is someone told me that Walmart had bought the Stop and Shop land and would be starting a pilot smaller scale store this summer. The truth is, none of that is true. Our demographics do not fit the business model for major developments like Walmart, and I think we're all pretty glad about that. We want to retain the rural character of our community, but we want to do it with the right infrastructure in place And we need a sound business plan that can create opportunities for small business owners, restaurants, and yes, possibly even a small grocery store. Norfolk, like most communities, has a master plan. This plan is full of data that helps define the ultimate potential of our community. For example, what is our population potential? What is our potential for commercial growth? All of those things are in the master plan. But what we don't have is a strategic plan. A plan that leverages that data and turns it into a business strategy that can be followed for years to come. A blueprint, if you will, for our town center. Several months ago, the Board of Selectmen brought landowners and business owners, town board members, and residents to form a working group we call the Downtown Development Committee. Their task was simple in design, but very difficult in execution: to build a strategic plan for the development of our town center. The first step in that process was to create a vision of what our town center would look like if we had all the pieces we needed in place. As you all know, we have commercial space lying vacant in town. We have land that's undeveloped. We have roads that dead end or are unfinished. And we have very limited residential density that would provide the type of flow we need to encourage small business owners. What we do know is that business owners need several things to come to Norfolk. We need infrastructure to support them. We need appropriate zoning that will encourage business development, yet protect the town. We need increased residential density near the center of town to support those small businesses. And we need funding. Funding that could be obtained from the state and not put on the backs of the residents. Norfolk has received grants from the state. We've received grants for the roundabouts, the underground power, the Route 115 project. All of those projects were funded by the state. Such grants are given out yearly to communities to help them with their infrastructure needs. But to be prioritized for these grants, you need a plan. You need to demonstrate to the state what the benefits are of the funds that they're going to provide you. We've gotten a lot of things done over the last few years. We now have stormwater drainage throughout our town center. We've modified some of our zoning to encourage growth, but we've not been able to bring all those pieces together to form a single vision for the town center. So tonight we're going to share with you a video, a 4-minute video, that will illustrate to you what the town center could be if all of those pieces came together. It will graphically present to you a business strategy that, if acceptable to the community, will provide current and future boards the blueprints to follow for years to come. Much like a jigsaw puzzle, if you don't know what the puzzle looks like and you start putting the pieces together, you may end up with something you really don't want. So this vision hopefully is the beginning of that process where we can establish the opportunity for us as a community to come together and say, this is what we could be. It won't be tomorrow, it may be years and years to come, but it's a place to start. Niels, if you could dim the lights for us a little bit, thank you. Yes, that picture at the Rotary was taken real time. I know that's a lot to throw at you in 3.5 minutes, so we're just going to go back up and go through a couple of key points that I want to point out to you in that presentation. The first that you saw on that slide was a bridge over the MBTA tracks. That bridge allows us to take Boardman Street, connect it over, tie it into Liberty Lane, and continue on up to the condominiums that are on top of the hill. It makes all of that land that is now dead-ended available for development and much more attractive to business owners. The second part I want to point out to you is that some of the stores that you see along, I think those of us that may remember a while back, you may remember what we used to call the moonscape, which is now, in theory, Norfolk Commons. It's just a prettier moonscape. We have changed our zoning to allow for small business development as well as residential above that zoning, which will encourage development if we can create more density in town in terms of places to live, residents, if you will, for people to take advantage of those small shops. The third thing I'd like to point out to you is the 3 potential residential developments. Niels, if you can go to that. The first 2 that you see down on Main Street are down by the old town hall. The third one is in back of the railroad tracks, in back of the current T station that you see now, that would enter off of Rockwood and potentially also off of Boardman Street. Niels, thanks. So let me share with you what the next steps are in this process. The next steps are the most important because it involves all of you. This is your community, you have ownership in it, and we need you to get involved in this. We've booked the library for June 21st at 7:30 for an open meeting to hear your thoughts on this presentation. This presentation, by the way, will be shown on Norfolk Cable. When you see the town meeting, if you go on to look at the town meeting, you'll see it played both before and the end of town meeting, so you'll get another chance to take a look at it. But at that meeting, we'll go into detail about zoning, infrastructure, and also, most importantly, or equally as important, potential revenue. And just one last comment on this, while this plan is conceptual, it is realistic. And while it may take many years to come to fruition, the foundation for this plan is already in place. The bridge is key, and I know folks have said the bridge to nowhere, and it's been called a lot of things, but it's key. We've been trying for years to get funding for this bridge. I think before I came on the board, so at least 10 years. We've come close on several occasions, but we've never been successful. We never had a plan. We never had a strategic plan where we could tell the state exactly what it meant in terms of the opportunities for new businesses, new residential opportunities, and revenue to the town. We have the foundation of that plan now. Several months ago, this Downtown Development Committee invited some of the members of the state that are in charge of giving out these grants to come visit our town. We shared this vision with them. With the help of Dan Winslow, our state representative, we learned last week that we are now at the top of the priority list for funding for that bridge. It can work. It can work. 2 of those 3 residential developments that you saw depicted on that presentation are already in the initial planning stages. One will be before the planning board shortly. And all that land, the moonscape, and everything that's owned by Stop and Shop, it's for sale. So anything can happen if we work hard enough. It'll take time. We are not presenting this as a vision that'll be here in a year or 2 years or 3 years. We may never reach the point where it's come to fruition, but we can take some major steps forward, and it'll provide new revenue, new opportunities, new services to the community. But it needs to be what you want. It needs to fit what you think your town center should be. You get the only vote.
Mr.
So
Lehan,
please come June 21st.
you're a minute over.
I need to take 30 seconds because I need to thank a gentleman. Niels Norgan, the gentleman that just ran this presentation. Niels is a resident of Norfolk. He does this for a living. He provides these types of presentations to organizations throughout the world. He donated his time and his effort to help us put that presentation together. We could not have done it without him, and Niels, I can't thank you enough.
Mr. Lehan,
Madam Moderator, thank you very much.
one moment, because I'm sure there's going to be lots and lots and lots and lots of questions that all should wait till the June date. Can you repeat that date again so that folks can come to that informational
It
meeting?
is on the
Oh, it's
screen,
right on the
Madam
screen. I
Moderator.
can't
Yeah.
see it from here. June
That-
21st.
That will be the night that
Outstanding.
we'll take all your questions and give you more information. We hope to see you all there. Thank you again very
Thank
much.
you. The next group to speak will be a representative from the Municipal Housing Trust, who I think yep, there he is.
Good evening. Bill Crump, 46 Mass Ave. Before we get started, I'm actually privileged to be part of this committee for the town of Norfolk. We're here this evening in support of Articles 11, 12, and 21 of this warrant, and we hope that everybody will vote in the affirmative. On the committee, we have Scott Dittrich, who's the chairman. Jim Lehan is our selectman representative. Mark Henney, Bill Conklin, Tom Cleverton, Sandy Smith, myself, Bill Crump, and Sue Jacobson, who is our definite brave administrative assistant. There's a lot of questions around as to what is affordable housing, so I wanted to take the opportunity to just kind of break it down a little bit. I think there's some stigma that's associated with affordable housing. It is not, I repeat, not Section 8 housing. And in fact, when you look at some of these examples, an individual needs to fall at or below 80% of the median income level for the area. As an example, a family of four cannot exceed earned income of $65,000 a year. To be eligible for these homes, must have a maximum asset level of not to exceed $75,000. And then just some of the formularies, it's expected that about 30% of an individual's earned income would be applied to housing costs, and in this particular example, it assumes $19,800 for a family of four. In addition, a lot of the affordable housing lots and homes that we're proposing, and you'll see tonight, all will have deed restrictions. They will remain in perpetuity with the property. So, there's not going to be a change. Once they're added to our complement of houses, we will, in fact, keep them there. Some of the benefits. Some of you may have been here, obviously, last year. This slide really hasn't changed too much. It has changed in that since 2006, we've added one house on Leland Street, which you'll see shortly. That's one house in 5 years. What we're proposing tonight, you will see an additional 7 houses added in this year. So we're making some considerable strides. Benefits. Put 7 properties on the tax roll, increasing revenue to the town. Adds another 7 units to our affordable housing lot. That'll become important as you see towards the end of the presentation. It strengthens the town's standing with the Commonwealth as a community actively pursuing an affordable housing alternatives. Begins to strengthen town's leverage with developers utilizing current 40B guidelines. Creates 6 brand new energy efficient homes promoting green development and the rehabilitation of one home that we've purchased at 7 Old Populatic. A lot of the goals that we look at in delivering affordable housing to the town, we try as best we can to identify a local preference. What does that mean? It means simply teachers, firemen, other town employees, residents. You work in the town, there will be a set aside on these upcoming lotteries, which is scheduled for July 24th of this year. 4 of the 7 will be referred to as local preference. That means there will be a bucket. Those that qualify in that bucket will be chosen from there, and hopefully there'll be folks that sort of fall into those categories. Creates affordable housing opportunities with direct access to town center, with obviously the exception of Mirror Lake and Old Populatic. What does this mean as far as proceeds? These houses will go on to a lottery system and net approximately $900,000 in proceeds for future housing development within affordable housing. This is the first house. I'm going to pretty much go through this one pretty quickly. This is one that we've already seen. This was an existing house that was just moved 4 lots down on the same street. That was as of March of last year. Current status, you've got Gump's Farm is also part of this endeavor for the 7 homes. Without going through too much detail, because I don't want to take up too much time on this, we have a total of 7 homes. 4 of them will be in the surrounding Gumps area, the Gumps farmhouse, and then 3 others one on Boardman and 2 on Medway Branch. Mirror Lake is the other one. Presently, Mirror Lake's under construction. The other houses on Gumps are going through various stages of clearing. We also are adding on, now before I get ahead of myself, a couple of important points. Applications for those who are being considered for affordable housing need to be submitted by June 28th. And there'll be an informational meeting on May 17th in the library. It's important. Anybody who have any questions, please attend. The lottery will be held on Tuesday, July 24th. And again, we already mentioned local preference. The key is all these homes hopefully will be ready by Q4 of 2012. This is Gumps. We can go pretty quickly through these, Jack. This is the dwelling that will be on Gumps Farm, 2-story. Most of these are 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Sue, keep me honest here. I think it's some of them are 4-bedroom, 2-bath.
Mirror Lake's 2-bedroom.
Yeah, Mirror Lake is the only one. We have a very small footprint there. This is Mirror Lake going through various levels of destruction. This is the elevation of what it will look like. This is Old Populatic, which was recently purchased in February this year. Just to give you some particulars on this, we're basically just going to put a new face as it relates to some paint, a new boiler system, and that'll be ready for auction as well on July 24th. And that is an existing 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. 82 Main, some people have seen this already. This was what we started down the road with Habitat for Humanity. Habitat is unfortunately unable to commit to the time frame due to funding restrictions. As a result, as a board, we are moving down the road to develop that with a general contractor. And permits are already in place, at least as it relates to some of the items. And we're hoping that construction will start as of June of this year. That's what was there. That's what we burned down. That's what will be there. A very nice house, about 12 to 1,300 square feet, nice front porch. Certainly will improve that area. This is probably one of the most important pieces of the presentation. This is an article that appeared in April, on April 29th. This was last Sunday. This was an article written about affordable housing about one of our towns. Jack, can you just hit it one more time? Medfield deals with affordable housing proposal. What I want to basically read to you is some of the highlighted and underlined pieces very quickly. It says, options are few. The town currently falls below the state mandated minimums for affordable housing. So the reality of the situation is that were the zoning board to turn down the developer's application, it would be likely to be granted on the state level by the Housing Appeals Committee. Very powerful. Medfield's affordable housing stock is 4.4%. We are currently at 3.2%. Needless to say, we are less than them, and they're being faced with a very significant 40B development. And the key is you want to try to maintain sort of control of what's happening within your town as it relates to development, bringing affordable housing and increasing the lot or the numbers for the town will help to improve your standing with the state if somebody tries to come in and sort of aggressively take after a 40B proposition. That's basically the entire proposal. As I said, I'm very excited to be part of this committee. I've been on it since it was the advisory committee for affordable housing back in 2005. Since then, we've only added one. In the next, hopefully, 9 months, we'll add 7 more. So we're making some great strides. Proceeds will continue us or allow us to continue the process of advancing affordable housing within the town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we are going to have a representative from the CPC who's going to speak for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I won't even need 5. I just wanted to bring people up to date on a couple of CPC-funded projects that are going on in town. One I was glad was just covered was the Municipal Housing Trust construction or pending construction of homes on Gumps Farm. Town Pond has been something that was approved a few years ago, and they recently passed their last hurdle in that they received Conservation Commission approval to construct the fishing piers, which were part of the rehabilitation plan at Town Pond, and construction should start this coming season, summer. We're very excited that a member of the Historical Commission has developed a sign for Town Hill, and we've seen the preview of it. It shows past and present road structures, and it also shows locations of landmarks that existed in the past, landmarks that still are there, as well as the current building arrangement on Town Hill. And she's working to arrange to have that installed, again, probably sometime late spring this summer. And also, finally, we do have our Article 22 is the proposal for the development of Gump's Farm for recreation and open space uses. And I wanted to bring everyone up to date on how we got there very quickly. Most of you know, fall 2010 town meeting voted to purchase, and spring 2011 town meeting approved hiring a consultant to develop a master plan. Over the summer of 2011, a 10-person working group was formed. Roughly 5 members were from town boards and 5 members were Norfolk residents. Several of them were also abutters to the property, which was very critical. We met at the site, we met in town hall several times, and came up with what we thought were the best uses, given the constraints of the property, the topography, and also the proximity to abutters. The CPC then went ahead and interviewed 4 different firms and selected Kyle-Zick Landscape Architecture, and Kyle-Zick will be doing a presentation tonight. And we worked, the CPC, Jim Lehan from Board of Selectmen, and Proto all worked with Kyle over the course of this year to finalize the plan that you'll see later tonight. And that was all I wanted to say, so not even 5 minutes.
Not even close. Very nicely done. The final group that made it to the organizational meeting and indicated that they would like to speak is the school building committee, who indicated that they had 5 minutes with slides. Anyone here from the school building committee with 5 minutes? Dr. Jackson, to the microphone.
Do we have the slides?
Mr. Hathaway, is he in charge of the slides?
He is, yes.
He went that way. He actually literally exited stage left.
Well, we have to have the slides. That's the most important part, because we do want you to see the pictures of what is probably one of the most handsome structures that I have seen, and one of the most functional school buildings in the state, probably. And I know that all of you either have already had a little walkthrough, or perhaps will join the school committee in the fall when they have a ribbon cutting ceremony. And
September 8th.
Pardon me?
September 8th.
September 8th, the ribbon cutting ceremony will take place, and there will be a tour for any citizen who wishes to see it. It's really splendid. But as you will remember, we began in November 2010. The school was partially demolished. We are constructing new drop-off loops. We are installing new playground equipment. And this September, the school will open, and children will actually be in it. It's kind of hard to believe it, but one of the things that really helped this year was the weather. So we are grateful for no snow all winter long. I think that the building committee will confirm that the project is under budget and on time as of today, and that's a very, very good thing. Phase 3 will take place this summer between August and carry on into the fall and late December in terms of a punch list and just cleaning up all the demolition of the existing school, constructing the new baseball field, and constructing additional parking. So those are just outside the school building itself. So I just want to show you a couple of pictures, and I know that there are people here tonight who can answer any construction problems or questions that you may have. But this is how the building will actually, that's its thumbprint or its footprint here in the brown color there, with the two wings, which are actually the instructional wings. If you show the next slide. There you can see it from the front entryway on the right, the far right. In the front of the building, you can see the Norfolk cable television and the SAC building. Then behind that is the gym, the new gym, which will be a very popular place for the whole community, I hope. The center, of course, is the entryway. To the left of the front is the Central Administration Office area, and behind the Central Administration Office is the cafetorium, where there will be a cafeteria and also a stage for performances and an area where meetings, public meetings could be held. Behind that large structure in the front are the two instructional wings on the left and the right, and that white area in the middle is the media center. This is the way the building looks today from the front in the construction and how it's going on and how it looks. If you go there now and stand in front of the building, that's what you will see. This is the media center as it's envisioned, a rendering of how it will look when we actually have children in there in the library. And from the same perspective, this is a photograph of where the construction is today. This is the cafeteria, and you can see the vast windows on the back, on the far side. Absolutely beautiful construction, and the small stage area in the front. That's the rendering, and this is actually from the same perspective, but the photograph as it is today. And we missed 2 slides. Go. Okay. Well, there we are.
Yay!
Yay! Thank you all, and thank you again for your generosity to the school. For those of you who haven't seen the old school lately, it literally is falling apart, so it's been well used, and the children and the teachers are grateful to all of you. Are there any questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So I misspoke. Well, I didn't really misspeak, but we do have one addition to the hit parade, and that is the Public Safety Building Committee, who has requested a couple of minutes. And so I said, what's a couple? And he said, it's a couple. I said, no, this group, a couple, can mean a lot of different things. So he said it's 2.
Right.
He has 2 minutes.
We want to be concise and quick. I'm George Cronin, 291 Main Street, Chairman of the Public Safety Building Committee. 2 years ago, this committee brought to the town a proposal for a new Public Safety Building Committee. I'm in a new Public Safety Building. Was voted in the affirmative at town meeting, subsequently narrowly defeated at the ballot. Unfortunately, since then, nothing's changed. In the present building, it's still the same building, just necessary basic repairs to keep the facility operational. The present building still lacks adequate space and still has building code and safety issues. So the need still is there. So the committee has met several times in the last year, and we've revisited every option possible, anywhere from renovation, addition, new buildings, and we're narrowing down our choices. And one major change that has happened since we last passed, at town meeting, the last proposal is communications being regionalized with Rentham, Plainville, and Franklin, and they'll be at a separate facility, and my understanding is that change is going to occur this summer. So any new facility will require a little less space and a lot less communication. That's the good news. The bad news is construction costs continue to rise, and it's been 2 years, so materials and labor are more money than they were 2 years ago. So the committee will continue to meet over the summer and finalize a solution that's most cost-effective for the town but still meets the needs of the town. And our current plan is to bring a proposal before the town in the fall, so we hope to see you all then. Thank you.
That was under 2 minutes by a whopping 15 seconds. Thank you very much. Nice job. Nice job. All right, well, that completes the reports of the committees. Article 8.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town authorize a 5-year lease purchase of fire equipment, including but not limited to 2 monitors and defibrillators for CPR, together with batteries, power supply, and all related accessories, replacements, parts, repairs, and insurance recoveries. We had IP'd this article in our recommendations, but subsequent to that, the life packs, you've seen that in the prison mitigation funds are being used to purchase some life packs. That is in fact a lease. And in order for the town to enter into the lease to acquire those life packs, town authorization is required, and that is the purpose of the motion I just made.
Are there any questions or comments relative to Article number 8? This requires a 2/3 majority vote. Seeing no one at the microphone, all of those in favor of Article 8 as read, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Article 9. Yeah, I was reading the motion.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 9 as printed in the warrant. Sorry about that.
You're quick on the draw tonight.
This is a standard article to transfer funds from the Preservation Fund to the CPC's admin and operating budget. The amount is $35,000.
You did second it? No.
Yeah.
All right. And that's it? You're done talking?
Yes.
All right. Great. Does anyone have a question or comment relative to Article number 9, rather? Seeing no one at the microphone, all of those in favor of Article number 9 as read and in the warrant, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Majority required and unanimous has it. Article 10.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 10 as printed in the warrant. This is a standard article that is mandated by the state to transfer 10% to the reserve funds of open space, historic, and preservation.
Is there any questions or comments relative to Article number 10? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor of Article number 10, majority is required, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Article 11.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 11 as printed in the warrant.
Do you have anything to say about it?
This article provides $65,000 to support the affordable housing subsidy program. This is the part of the article, one of the articles the Municipal Housing Authority presentation had included as wanting approval for.
Does anyone have any questions or comments relative to Article 11, a recurring article? Yes, sir.
Pat Sneed, 19 Frederickson Road. I'm perennially a minority in opposition to this article. First, I don't believe that there's really any point to favoring any particular group over another, Norfolk residents or not, for the use of this funds. It hasn't mattered much in prior years because there hasn't been all that much affordable housing. So secondly, given the increase in activity, I believe these funds would be better expended in additional affordable housing rather than additional subsidies to the affordable housing that's already being planned. And thirdly, if you look around and note the color of the skin of most of us in this room, you can figure that the people that this subsidy will be going to are not going to tend to be people of any color other than white. So it's my belief that this provision is discriminatory in operation, if not on its face.
Does anyone else have anything to say relative to Article 11? For or against, or a question? Seeing no one, now I see no one at a microphone. Sorry about that. All of those in favor of approval of Article 11, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? No. The ayes carry, a majority was required. Article 12.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 12 as printed in the warrant. This is a transfer of funds from the Community Preservation Reserves to the Affordable Municipal Housing Trust of $300,000.
Does anyone have any questions or comments relative to Article number 12? Then, if you have a question or comment, feel free to start working your way down to a microphone as soon as that question or comment occurs to you so that I'll know and I won't miss you.
Nancy Connors, Everett Street. Earlier we were told that the Housing Authority would be spending the money rather than the Habitat for Humanity has bailed out on us. Now, I don't understand with them bailing out on paying for these houses where this money is now coming from. I don't understand it. Maybe it's just me that missed it. But I'd like somebody to make that somewhat clear to me, because now we're talking about we've paid $1 million for the site. There's going to be proposed for $750,000 for doing it. And also now it's the money to build the houses themselves. I'm a little confused. Maybe it's my old age, but could somebody understand it, please?
Can someone come down and respond to the question? By the way, people are not charged for time for answering a question, just in case anybody's keeping tally at home.
Scott Dittrich, 7 Hoover Road, Chairman of the Norfolk Municipal Housing Trust. Nancy, the answer is a little bit confusing, but first of all, part of the CPC money that's there, 10% a year, 10% of that money must be spent in the affordable housing. 10% must be spent for recreation, 10% in other areas. So part of the funds come from CPC. The Housing Trust struck a deal with Patterson Corral as far as building 5 of the houses, that 4 houses that are going on Gump's property and the house that's going on Mirror Lake. Those houses are being built for free for us. We provided the land for them. The property at the Borelli's condominiums, when each condominium is sold, $10,000 comes to the Municipal Housing Trust, funds from that. So there are funds that are coming from really 2 or 3 places. 1, from Borelli's property. 2, money coming from CPC. This $300,000 that we're asking for is just part of the 10% that we've been asking for each year. We're now finally spending some of that. When we sell a house, that money will come back to us, and we'll use that money to build another house. That, in the simplest terms, is where the money's coming from. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, except that these people are building these houses.
Excuse me, we're not having a conversation. Feel free to come down on the mic for your second time at the microphone.
Thank you for the explanation. I guess my question now is, somebody's building these houses for us for nothing. What's the kicker?
I would say the kicker is that Fox Run, which starts in Rentham and will come into Norfolk, there'll be 49 houses in Norfolk. Part of the bylaws, if I say this wrong, somebody will jump on me, I'm sure, but part of the bylaws now state any new development in the town of Norfolk, for every 10 houses, 1 must be affordable. So for Fox Run, there had to be at least 4 new affordable houses. The deal that was struck was that They building the houses on Gump's Farm, they didn't have to build the affordable houses on Fox Run. That was the deal.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else with a question or comment relative to Article number 12? Seeing nobody at a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article number 12, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? It is not unanimous, however, a majority is required. The vote was already taken.
No, I know. After the vote, I'm sorry.
The ayes carry. I know what you're doing now, but it took me a minute. I'm like, what are you doing? The ayes carry. It is however, prior to Article 13, I believe we have a motion.
We do. Sorry, I didn't want to get lost in
I saw you walking down. I'm like, oh, boy.
I know. Cindy Andrade, Worcester Road and Community Preservation. I'd like to make a motion to move Article 22 forward to be considered at this time prior to Article 13.
So for those keeping score, currently there is a motion before the floor. That motion is simply to decide whether we're moving Article 22 to be decided and discussed now. Does anyone have a question or comment about moving Article 22 to be discussed now?
Just as a brief explanation, that we have a consultant here tonight to do the presentation on the Gump's Farm project. Since we are Article 22, we wanted to make sure that the presentation is done tonight while he is here.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments relative to the current motion on the floor? Seeing no one at a microphone, all those in favor of moving Article number 22 to be heard now, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? While not unanimous, the majority was all that was required. The majority carries. Article number 22.
Kyle Zick, please.
Well, first we have to have the advisory committee read.
I'm sorry.
Is there a motion?
Jumping forward again.
Just messing me up all over the place.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 22 as printed in the warrant. The CPC fund is to develop land referred to as Gump's Farm for open space use. This property will provide outdoor recreation with a new playground that will hopefully replace the older and out-of-date playground on Boardman Street.
I believe there's also someone here that when we had that management meeting, it was determined that the CPC would have 10 minutes, 10 slides, it's tight, but I know you can do it, to speak on Article number 22. Go. No pressure. No
Thank
pressure.
you very much. My name's Kyle Zick. I'm a landscape architect with Kyle Zick Landscape Architecture. As Cindy had mentioned, we've been working on this master plan with the committee since the beginning of the year. And I'll quickly give you a summary of the project goals, and the next steps and what you will be voting on. So the Gump's Farm Master Plan is a plan to determine how best to use the parcel of land that was approved for purchase by town meeting previously. And just to go backwards, the 22-acre parcel is actually quite diverse. It's beautiful wooded property that has wetlands, different types of woodland, stone walls. It also has community gardens on the property. What's shown, this is an aerial view of the property. What you're looking at is the 22-acre parcel, Rockwood Road, Boardman Street, Medway Branch, Tucker Road. What's shown here in blue are wetlands. The purple that surround the wetlands, those are the 100-foot buffer zones that the state and the town have jurisdiction over and we really can't build in. And just for your own, also for your orientation, the Gump's Farm property is kind of what you think of here, Gump's house being here, and then the parking lot and some of the farm stand. So, as Cindy had mentioned, over the past year, a committee was formed, and that committee discussed and determined what the program for that 22 acres would be. So in other words, what are the uses for the land? And this list of 10 things were what they came up with. That there would be on-site parking, which would be for people to drive to the site and utilize the different things they were going to determine were to be done there. The kids' place would be relocated and built with new equipment in this location because Kids Place, the current equipment is out of date, not to code and requires a tremendous amount of maintenance. That there would be a community garden that would be bigger than what's there today. What's there today is 60 foot by 60 foot. There's such demand for it from nonprofits, but also from residents, that we feel that we could expand it to 80 by 20. There would be a picnic area, a trail system. Oh, I'm sorry, 80 by 200 if I use a trail system that would traverse the property, and the trail would have different types of trails. Some would be handicap accessible, some suitable for bicycles, some just for foot traffic. There would also be neighborhood access points, so houses all throughout that surround the park could have access. They wouldn't have to drive necessarily to the one location. We would maintain setbacks to all the abutters, with landscaping or other devices just to maintain privacy. And that we would make sure that whatever's proposed is integrated into the neighborhood so it feels like it's appropriate in its scale and its context. This is the overall master plan. Again, same orientation as that previous plan I showed. And here are the major elements. There's a parking lot here off of Rockwood Road. That's the old Gump's house. That parking lot can handle 30 cars here. There's also space on grass for an overflow of another 30 cars in case there was a farmer's market or a special event. There's that flexibility, but you don't build a parking lot for, like on a retail situation for Christmas Day, that kind of thing. Then in terms of Kids Place, there's 1 acre devoted here to the play area. 2/3 of that would be play equipment, similar to what what you imagine a play area is. Another 1/3 that would be open space, lawn. It's all fenced in so that kids are safe and they're not going to mingle with the parking lot, that kind of thing. This is the community garden that I mentioned, the 80 foot by 200 feet. And this is evergreen screening to this property, so that some of these more active uses aren't in view or feel like they're in somebody's backyard. This yellow line is part of the trail system in addition to these beige lines. The yellow is actually the handicap accessible trail. It starts at the parking lot, would go across the first wetland with a boardwalk, continue to the second wetland, which is actually a vernal pool, so there's open water there this time of year. And there's a little spur here to a glacial erratic, which is a fancy name for a very large boulder that was left behind when the glaciers were here. The tan trails are just foot trails. They're narrower, they don't have as much of an improved surface, but those are also very important in terms of neighborhood access from Medway Branch, where there's already an existing sidewalk, also here. They would be very subtle entrances, maybe marked with a granite pillar or wooden post, just so people can leave their house, get on the sidewalk, and get into the park themselves. These parcels that are shaded lightly in beige, those are the affordable housing parcels. And as some of those trails cross those areas, there will be split rail fencing or a combination with planting to provide separation so that people understand what's for public use or private use. And the planning of these parcels has incorporated any easements that would be required for the public access. I mentioned the boardwalk here at the vernal pool and this boardwalk. There is this spur trail and this boardwalk, which we're considering a phase 2 improvement because it is a longer boardwalk crossing that would require more expense and more permitting time. So we're actually saying once the demand shows that there's so much use of these trails and the Conservation Commission would approve this, we would then go forward with that. I'm going to zoom in quickly and just go over some of the other details. I've already mentioned the parking. Within that parking, there would be handicap parking as well. The parking lot is proposed to be paved at the aprons to the road and for the handicap spots, but otherwise the main parking would be gravel to keep it pervious so water can drain through it and also keep the costs down and maintain kind of the rural character. The stone wall that exists would be reinforced and rebuilt some so that it is continuous along there and so that the cars aren't necessarily as visible from in the parking lot. I mentioned this screening. There's a garage as part of the old Gump's property that would be used for storage for the kids' place, the garden, that kind of thing. It would also house the well and electrical equipment that would be part of this as well. I mentioned the well because it would be water for maintenance of the kids' place, but also to provide water for the garden itself. One thing we've talked about is potentially for a temporary restroom. If that were decided to be something desired, it could be something that would be part of the parking lot, so it could be pulled in and pulled out, and it would definitely be an amenity for the kids' place as families use this. Another thing to note is that there's a sidewalk extension here to connect to the existing sidewalks here so that people can walk or ride their bikes to the park, and they're all not required to drive. Then if we go to the other portion, the western portion, I've already mentioned the yellow trail, which is handicap accessible. There is a long boardwalk here to minimize the amount of disturbance near the vernal pool, and there is some seating here at the end. We do that because, one, it's a scenic location, but also so there's an opportunity for school groups or other small groups to come out there and understand a little bit more about the environment, and there'll be an educational component. The trail system may also have trail markers that can have numbers or other coding so you understand that there's a certain type of ecosystem or a certain type of plant or something that's important, so there's another layer of education involved. This is a three-dimensional view looking toward Kids Place, the parking lot, and the community garden with the trail system in the background. And the Gump's house is right here. A little bit about Kids Place itself. Here are two renderings, also perspectives. From a similar view from the parking lot is here, and then the opposite view is this one. Like I said, we're replacing Kids Place in its approximate size and equivalent play equipment, but in modern day standards. And I think Ann Proto's done a really nice job of making sure that this play equipment and the design is something unique to Norfolk and not something that's generic straight out of a catalog. The design is meant to be inspired by Norfolk, and if you look at it closely, you'll kind of get a sense that the rotary element is here, and the black fire truck from town,
30 seconds.
the Grange and the old schoolhouse are all represented, also the turtle crossings. Then in terms of the request for $750,000, it's broken down here. This is all as if a contractor would do the work. There is still opportunity to have volunteers contribute materials and labor that can bring some of these costs down or allow us to do other things. And I'd be happy to answer questions if appropriate.
Thank you very much. All right, well, that ends the presentation. Do we have anyone with any questions or yes or no comments relative to Article 22? Please feel free to come up to the microphones and line up so that I don't miss anybody. It's tough to see people waving. All right, name please.
David Lutz, 15 Pondview Road. I'm just curious, and you're probably not the right person to ask, what's going to happen to the current Kids Place property? I don't know if it's protected by open space provisions or what, but I would just be curious what's going to happen to that.
Can somebody answer the question about what's going to happen to the current Kids Place playground? Anybody? Mr. Lehan is diving for a microphone. I won't comment beyond that fact.
Diving for one that works.
Do you want to use mine?
I'll speak loudly. Can you hear me, Dave? Yeah. Kids Place is town property. It does not have sufficient frontage for construction. There are issues associated with the housing authority in the back, so there are no plans, no recommendations at this point in time. It'll be excess land, and anything that we would do would have to come before this body anyway.
Question, Kathy Fox, 61 Boardman Street. Who and what is going to pay for the upkeep of this property?
Great question. Who can answer the who is going to pay for the upkeep of Gump's Farm property question? Anybody? I see someone. Bless you.
Ann Proto, I'm the Recreation Director. I can address the playground portion of it. When we designed this playground, we worked very hard to limit the things that need maintenance. Recreation, along with DPW, does maintain the current Kids Place, and we plan to maintain this Kids Place as well.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I have two questions. John Nuhibian from Knoll Drive. One is, what's the annual estimated cost for upkeep of the whole area? That's what I'm wondering, because that doesn't seem to be included in the numbers we saw. And the other question is, does that number, the $750,000, include all of the furnishings, or are there some above and beyond that that would need to be spent?
Both good questions. Cindy, can you? Oh, would you like to answer both of those great questions?
I can answer one.
All right. It's on.
Okay, thank you. I'll let CPC answer the part of the playground, but in terms of the recreational areas, the community gardens, one of the plans is to lease out some of those spaces. That is an option we're looking at that would create revenue to maintain the gardens. In terms of the walkways and more of the passive recreation components, the Lions have had discussions with us about not only perhaps maintaining them, but also potentially contributing a great deal to actually creating them. So we're looking at every volunteer component we can to reduce the costs. We're also looking at, we do have an analysis of the maintenance costs aside from the playground, and we believe between those two components, volunteers, as well as additional revenues that might come from the leasing of the space for gardening, we should be able to cover all of the expenses.
Did that do it? All right, are there any other questions or comments? I'm assuming not, because nobody's coming towards a microphone. Seeing nobody coming towards a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 22, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? While not unanimous, a majority is all that's required, and the ayes do have it. On to Article 13, correct? Let me jump around, my counting goes. Article 13.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 13 as printed in the warrant. The town budget discussion showed approximately $400,000 to be spent at the direction of the selectmen for road work in town. This allows the selectmen to accept the funds and to disperse them at their discretion.
Are there any questions or comments relative to Article 13?
Jim Giffey, 34 Robin Road. I'd just like to have somewhat of a breakdown of where this money is going to be spent for. What's the projects that we're talking about or looking for spending on this money? Thank you.
Mine's still available.
Again, must be me, sorry. Oh, Ron, do you want to answer?
If I, excuse me, Bob McGee, Director of Public Works. If I understood the question right, it's with regards to spending of Chapter 90 monies? If I missed any of that?
Well, that's what this is for, is for the expenditure of Chapter 90 funds. So I'm assuming that that's what he's asking, is what are you spending it on?
Well, normally, just to let you know, this time of the year, we usually have a construction plan for where we're going to spend this money, and it's usually done through a survey of our infrastructure, right-of-way, sidewalks, streets, and so forth. This year, however, we haven't nailed down a construction schedule because Chapter 90 hasn't been published yet. We don't expect to see it until the next fiscal year, sometime in September or August. So we still have some planning that we're preparing right now, but we don't have it ready to answer that question directly.
Are there any other questions or comments relative to Article 13 as printed in the warrant? Seeing no one at the microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 13, which, by the way, requires a majority, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? While not unanimous, the ayes carry. Article 14.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 14 as printed in the warrant. The 13 revolving funds approved by this article are established for routine operational expenses, manage the difference between receipts and disbursements of funds. The limits on the revolvers have not changed since last year.
Are there any questions or comments relative to Article 14? Seeing nobody coming to a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 14 as drafted and written in the warrant, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes carry. I believe it is unanimous. There's people moving around. I'm calling it unanimous. Majority was all that was required. Article 15.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 15 as printed in the warrant. This article allows the town to accept grants and spend the money.
That was nicely said. I can't imagine that there'd be a question after that. Any questions or comments relative to Article 15? Seeing, Mr. Rosenberg.
Yeah, are there any particular grants that we're expecting?
The answer is all of them. No. Here we go. Mr. Hathaway with the answer to the question.
Working with the regional dispatch group, the communications group, we received a $1.4 million grant to combine our communications department with Rentham, Plainville, and Franklin. Thank you, sir. And we're trying to get another $3 million grant to finish that project. So there's a whole host of other grants that we do receive, nothing in that magnitude, but I know the school receives a number of grants as well.
Any other questions or comments relative to Article 15? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 15, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. A majority was required. Article 16.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 16 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
This article allows the Water Department to collect grants and spend the money.
Any questions on Article 16? I smiled at Mr. Rosenberg and he stayed seated. I'm going to smile at him more often. Seeing no one at the microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 16, and he knows I'm teasing. Article 16, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Article 17.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 17 as printed in the warrant. This article allows the town to sell land that it has acquired by tax title. This has occasionally been significant funds. I believe there are parcels of land that are being contemplated for sale in the future.
Are there any questions or comments relative to Article 17?
When we...
Could you please identify yourself for the record?
If I can get the microphone.
Don't break the microphone or you buy it.
Who wants it?
We need the revenue. It's all a part of a scheme.
Walter Byron, 80 Fruit Street. In this article and a couple more that are coming up, are we allowed to take this tax title land and convert it to affordable housing?
No. We can auction it off, and what we're going to do on May 25th is have an auction for a house on Borman Street. The Municipal Housing Trust can certainly buy the property if they win the bid.
Are there any other questions relative to Article 17 or comments?
May 24th, thank you.
That's May 24th. Seeing no one at the microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 17, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Majority is all that's required. The ayes carry. Article 18.
Madam Moderator, I move to accept Article 18 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
This article allows the selectmen to accept land to facilitate development.
Are there any questions or comments relative to Article 18? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 18, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. A majority was required. Article 19.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 19 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
This article allows the selectmen to sell surplus property.
Any questions or comments relative to Article 19?
Is there any...
Please identify yourself for the record.
I'm sorry, David Rosenberg, North Street. Is there any surplus property under consideration or likely to be considered for sale?
Mr. Hathaway.
Nothing off the top of my head. In the past, we've sold very old cars and trucks is the primary things that we're getting rid of.
Any other questions or comments relative to Article 19? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 19 as written in the warrant, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? It is unanimous and a majority was required. Article 20.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 20 as printed in the warrant. Due to the redistricting of the town from 4 to 3 precincts, this article will allow the Community Preservation Committee to allow a member at large to maintain the 9-membership committee.
Are there any questions or comments relative to Article 20? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 20, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. A majority was what was required. Article 21.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 21 as printed in the warrant. This is providing funds from the Community Preservation Fund of $100,000 to assist in the development of the property at 82 Main Street.
Thank you. Now, with respect to this, originally Municipal Housing had 5 minutes, but he elected to take that 5 and put it on the 5 that he had during the committee report, which equals 10. So he spoke for 10 minutes on this issue. That's Article 21. Does anyone have a question or comment relative to Article 21? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article number 21 as written in the warrant, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. A majority was required. Article 22 we've already done. So Article 23.
Madam Moderator, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 23. The proposed funding of the improvements of the Town Hall have not been proposed as part of a long-term plan for the use or disposition of the property. In the absence of such a plan, the Advisory Committee feels that the expenditure of these funds should not be made.
Anybody with a question or comment relative to whether or not we should indefinitely postpone Article number 23, please now approach a microphone.
Jim Deepry, 34 Robin Road. I have a question. If this is indefinitely postponed, then with Article 24 coming forward, that option, if that proceeds, there'll be no counter capabilities in discussion. So my understanding is that if it's possible to allow it to be postponed to some time later in the meeting, if need be, that could happen. Instead of indefinitely, allow it to be for today so that it can be brought up again at this meeting.
So you're moving, well, will it answer your question to know that they're also going to indefinitely postpone 24? It's a bit of a spoiler alert, but...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Does that help? Yes. Okay. All right. So all of those in favor of indefinitely postponing Article 23, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? Unanimous. Article 23 is indefinitely postponed. Article 24.
Madam Moderator, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 24.
Any statements relative to
Yes. While a sale of the Old Town Hall will be in the best interest of the town, the Advisory Committee feels that it should be conditioned upon a transition strategy for the, it should not be conditioned upon a transition strategy for the Recreation Department. Furthermore, Articles 23 and 24 are separate articles requiring consideration on their own merit, and we could not help but be influenced by the discussions of each article by knowledge that the other apparently contradict each other. We believe that the clarity regarding the best use of that property, renovation, sale, or perhaps both, need to be brought to the issue before the town is in a position to take any further action.
Any questions or comments relative to the current motion to indefinitely postpone Article 24? Seeing no one approaching a microphone, all of those in favor of indefinitely postponing Article 24, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The majority carries. The ayes have it, while it was not unanimous. Article 25.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 25 as printed in the warrant. Currently, as it exists today, a hunting license affords an individual the right to hunt on private property, but not on town property. If a landowner does not want a hunter to hunt on his or her property, it's the responsibility of the landowner. it's the responsibility of the landowner, according to posting statutes, to post signs stating that hunting is not permitted on the property. Approving Article 25 means that a landowner would not be required to first post would not be required to first post to keep hunters off his or her property. It would be the responsibility of the hunter to receive approval by the owner and to have the owner sign an approved form authorizing the hunter to access his or her property. That signed document would then need to be approved by the chief of police or his designee.
I also understand that there's going to be a 3-minute presentation by the bylaw committee.
No longer needed.
Okay, well then, to heck with them then.
Madam Moderator, I'd like to offer an alternative motion to indefinitely postpone Article 25.
All right, so there's now a motion within the motion. So let's table Article 25's motion and rule on, I guess we need a second. We got a lot of seconds. We got a second, a third, and a fourth. So current motion before the floor is to whether or not to indefinitely postpone Article 25. Can you tell us why?
I can.
Let's hear it.
Well, we certainly think there's a lot of credence, a lot of credit to this article, and we think there certainly needs to, based on recent events, especially in Norton, concerns from many residents in town that this is something that we need to have addressed. We don't think there's been enough public debate about it. So we're offering this opportunity now to have that debate. We also want to work with we've raised some concerns that we want to talk about with our insurance company. We're licensing this, putting the police chief in the position of licensing hunting. We want to make sure that there is not a liability issue for the chief. So at the end of the day, I talked to the selectmen about it. We didn't take a formal vote, but we would like to offer that we indefinitely postpone this, reconstruct it, and bring it back in the fall.
Relative just to the issue of whether or not to indefinitely postpone, does anyone have a question or comment, yes or no, on whether or not to indefinitely postpone this article? State your name further.
Tara Werlick, Lake Street. I've been working for close to 3 years now trying to get some form of a vote on this bylaw change. I live on Lake Street. I have 22 acres of land. Every hunting season, there's people hunting on my land without permission. We post, the signs either fall down or are taken down. I've had hunters on the land that I've approached asking them to leave. They've asked for my name, my address, my phone number. I've had to escort them off the property. The most recent one was not this past hunting season, but the year before. He had Vermont license plates. So they're coming from out of state to hunt on my land. I shouldn't have to worry about the safety of my children, the safety of my pets, the safety of my home, because there's hunters on the land that I am not giving permission to hunt. I understand you want to indefinitely postpone, but year after year I've requested this, and this is the first time it's coming here, and there's no guarantee that this is going to come forward again in the fall, and I'm going to go through another hunting season potentially with people hunting on my land that I do not want there. Giving me permission to say not sign a paper, that gives me at least more power than I have right now. Posting every 50 feet, the perimeter of my property is not working. And giving hunters more rights on the land that I own, that I pay real estate taxes on, just seems inherently wrong. So I would prefer just to have a vote on as it stands. And if we need to change the bylaw in November, so be it. But at least I'd like to know that I have some protection right now. Thank you.
Thank you. The issue on the floor is whether or not to indefinitely postpone Article 25. That was a no, so we need someone at the yes. Well, I guess you're right. So it's a motion to amend the motion to indefinitely postpone, and then it would be the motion to amend. All right, so there you go. I've been corrected. This is a motion to amend the current motion that's on the floor to a motion to indefinitely postpone. Which means you get, it's the same animal, but you get another bite at the apple. So she spoke, Ms. Worley spoke, opposing the motion to indefinitely postpone, but I think that her speech would also speak to the motion to amend the current motion. And if it's successful, then you get another bite at the apple and another bite after that. So the current motion before the floor is whether or not we can amend the motion before the floor to change it to a motion to indefinitely postpone. Go.
Now I'm confused.
It's all right. Just, do you think we should definitely postpone or not?
Yes.
Why?
I believe, Mark Flaherty, Hunter Ave, I believe that this should be indefinitely postponed because of the fact that anyone who goes hunting, unlike this incident in Norton, which happened to be a state trooper who, in my opinion, was an idiot. Because one, if you're out hunting a deer and you see one about the size of a dog, not good to shoot that one. And number two, if you miss that deer, I mean, come on. He did not identify a target he was shooting at, and therefore we want to try to make it in this town so that you can't go hunting like that. I'm sorry. If you're hunting, anyone who hunts knows you identify the target you're shooting at. You have a clear shot at that target. You don't just shoot blindly and hope that you hit something. It doesn't work that way. So by postponing this measure, and if they reword it and rewrite it, maybe it can come out better. But as it is right now, with respect to people who own property where people go hunting on, I'm sorry, if you post and it's not working, then I would call the police. That's my suggestion. I'm not a cop. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how all that works. But I do agree that this should be postponed for the reason that hunters that hunt responsibly will not take shots at targets they can't identify. So the situation like that happened in Norton will not happen if the hunters are responsible.
So the current motion is a motion to amend, and you would like to speak against the motion to amend.
I would like the article not to be
postponed
at all.
Can you identify yourself for the record? That's my fault.
Yes, I'm Gail Anderson, 5 Evans Lane in Norfolk. And I addressed this issue over 20 years ago because we own a large portion of land in Norfolk. We back up to the prison land. My property was posted, and people were still in my front yard within 150 feet of my house, my barn, and my pastures go even further toward the woodlands that are my property. And I stood nose to nose in my yard with someone arguing to me about that he had shot a deer and he was tracking it through my land. And I said, well, please leave. I don't want hunting on my property. And the land was posted. And I've had to replace it numerous times. If they blow down, you see them blown down. One was left out of 50 or 60. So someone is taking them down and pocketing them. That's okay. I'm going to put them right back up. At the time, 20 years ago, it got to be such a huge and hot issue that I actually had threats against me, and I was told that somebody could pick my horses off from Needham Street if they wanted to. At the time, there were so many women in town who had small children in new housing developments, and bullets had gone into the sides of their homes and through one woman's window. There was a similar incident not very long ago where Walpole had gunshots, and it was from the Norfolk property line. So this is something that's ongoing, and as the town continues to grow, and people, if they do come in from out of town and they are not aware of maybe the 60 acres from the field they used to hunt in is no longer there, but it's filled with housing development, we're in danger, and it's just a matter of time before something happens in this town. I think this is something that needs to be addressed. I know that it puts paperwork on the police chief, and we don't even have room, for more file cabinets there. But somebody has to find a way to deal with this and deal with it now. It should not be put off any longer.
At the yes microphone relative to the motion to amend.
Jay Tallerman, Chickadee Drive. I'm the chair of the Bylaw Review Committee. I worked with the other members to
craft the bylaw. This came to us out of concerns from certain residents regarding hunting. We've known about it for a long time. We were determined to come up with some kind of solution. Some of the solutions that were presented to us related to new signage and distance things. In my experience as counsel to other towns, those are rarely effective. So we went backwards and we decided to address this from a more simple perspective, and that was we started with an out-and-out ban, a bylaw that would out-and-out ban hunting in Norfolk. And there was some real discussion about that, and we felt that that was one potential avenue. However, we were also sensitive to the fact that there are some large private holdings in town, and we were not anti-hunting at any point in time. We wanted to make sure that people might have some type of rights to still pursue those rights, provided we had some checks and balances. So we developed, through some discussion, a process whereby there'd be a permit or a license to do it. The reason why we're seeking indefinite postponement tonight isn't because we have a lack of faith in what we came up with. We felt it was a good solution that could please hunters as well as private landholders alike. The reason why we have some outstanding concerns is because, as Jack has pointed out, we want to make sure our insurance company is satisfied and things. I'm confident they will be, but it's a worthy box to check. And second, we want to make sure the chief, who's going to have significantly more responsibilities, is 100% comfortable on this. I get the sense that he is comfortable with working with some type of regulation of hunting. We just want to make sure that we have a process that he feels comfortable with. We don't want to bring something to town meeting floor and take a vote on it where he might have less than 100% comfort level. We're committed to continuing to work on it. We have an active committee again. We want to bring it back. If we have a meeting in the fall, we intend to bring it back then. We're going to work closely with the chief and with town council and insurance. We're going to get this right. We feel we're just about there. We just want to make sure that it's the right thing to do. Ultimately, we may decide an out-and-out ban is the right thing to do too, but right now we're working from the standpoint that we want to protect the people of Norfolk from the unintended consequences or intended consequences of illicit hunting, and that we're committed to doing that. But we think the debate tonight won't be well served until everyone in town is comfortable with the solution.
Thank you. At the no microphone to the motion to amend.
David Rosenberg, North Street. I'd like to thank Mr. Tellerman and the Bylaw Study Committee for their hard work and I would say excellent work in the bylaw amendment that they're proposing. I also agree with Jack that an opportunity to discuss things more fully is a good thing, and we should work on that. I think the question is, though, what the default status should be until the Bylaw Study Committee does have an opportunity to talk to the chief and talk to the insurance company, and until the more public discussion happens. And I would advocate that the passing this bylaw amendment as currently drafted is a much better default state for us to be in until there is ratification with the insurance company, with the chief of police, and with a wider discussion. So I would advocate passing this amendment, but also continuing with the work that Mr. Tallerman and Jack said that they were planning to go forward with.
Is there anyone at the yes microphone on the motion to amend?
I would like to
Please
have,
state your
excuse
name.
me, I'm sorry, Ron Ober, 69 Main Street.
Thanks.
I would like to have this article indefinitely postponed, okay, for the following reasons. The town, and I've got a lot of things here, but a lot of it's been mentioned, so I'm not going to say it again. The advisory committee, I think, did a great job in terms of their study. I'd like to see more of that study. And I have heard nothing mentioned about our dreaded tick diseases. Town of Medfield has not allowed hunting for a number of years, except for the land management area. They're covered with ticks over there. So isn't Holliston. So isn't Millis. And I know Norfolk is too, because I have been, I'm a person who's out in the woods, out in the fields. And I must say I'm not a deer hunter. That doesn't mean that the Lyme disease that I contracted last year, okay, that I'm still feeling the effects of, that would have, I don't know if it would have been a lesser issue if there were more dead deer, I'm not sure. But I am sure of one thing, that the town of Medfield instituted hunting this year. Okay? They enlisted about 25 to 35 hunters, and they had a great harvest. I believe they're going to do it again next year. And the reason was simple. The town is infested with Lyme disease. That's only going to get greater. If anyone's outside, I don't even want to see a show of hands, but I'll bet there's been 200 or 300 ticks on this audience this year, if not 2,000. I don't know. But I do know that it's a dreaded disease, and it isn't just Lyme. I had a dog this year. I'm a dog trainer. And I had a dog this year, my own dog, that came within an hour of dying of Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And that's 2 diseases. There are 3 others that I don't even know how to pronounce them, but they are there. And the fact of the matter, excuse me, the fact of the matter is the deer carry the ticks. Has anyone asked, how do the ticks get on the deer? Everybody thinks they fall off bushes or whatever. They don't. Okay? Mice carry the ticks to where the deer are sleeping and where they bed down for the night. From my understanding, ticks don't jump. They crawl. You've seen them? They crawl. And they crawl on the deer. The poor deer are in the wrong place at the right time. That's all I can tell you. So they're getting blamed. I think we ought to look at this, look at all sides of it, because if hunting is banned, and Norfolk has an out-and-out ban on hunting, tell me where you're going to get the hunters to go in and kill the deer. Because they're going to give up. Hunters are going to just walk away and say, forget it. So that's all I can say.
Thank you.
Please postpone this and study it more.
Thank you. All right, at the no, I'm opposed to the motion to amend microphone.
David Axberg, 106 Seekonk Street. We do have a fair amount of land. We do have hunters that do hunt on it. We are in favor of passing something that regulates who's coming in and out of our property. We do have livestock. We are concerned with somebody just walking across from the gun club at Walpole, which they have done, and walking onto our property, just saying, hey, we can do this. And we have signs up. They still do it. I'm in favor of it only to the point of knowing who's on my property. I'm not saying don't hunt, but I am saying I want to know who's there. Thank you.
Thank you. So recollecting that right now what's before us is whether or not to amend the motion. There's a motion to amend. Are you a yes?
Yes, I am.
Please identify yourself for the record.
My name is William Slattery. I live at 110 Park Street on the town line. I have the cranberry bog there. We have 130 acres where we live. And I don't find too much fault with this bylaw except for a couple of things. Number one, I don't think you should make your chief liable, and I think you do with this wording in this thing. And I don't think it should be any kind of a license. Rather, if he has notification and you have to sign papers for whatever, they do that. In some states it's required. In the state, it's a state law. You have to get landowner permission to hunt on private property. 23 states in the United States mandate this. Massachusetts does not. That is one thing. I don't find fault with it at all. I don't just let anybody hunt on my property. They have instructions about where the houses are, what's going on. I don't find fault with what the gentleman said about the cows or whatever livestock he has. We know what goes on. People do walk on your property. They do as they please. We understand that. The other thing I have a problem with, and Walpole's bylaw addresses it, it addresses the problem animal control. Now, people have a license from the state of Massachusetts. They go to classes, they pass the test, and they do what they call the PAC license, problem animal control. You should have some provision like Walpole's does in your bylaw that says this activity is exempt from control. Because What if you have a raccoon in your chimney? How's he going to get it out of there? It's not necessarily going to crawl out of there. He may have to dispatch this thing to get rid of it, or, whatever. You shouldn't just have it so that it's like a one-way street, and it seems to me that this is. I don't have a problem with people signing on. Fine, great idea. I like it. Not too bad, but do it the right way. And if it takes stalling it off and going back to these guys on the, bylaw committee and making sure that they do it right, I'm all for it. Whatever you got to do.
Is there anyone else who would like to weigh in on whether or not to amend the motion to a motion to indefinitely postpone? Are you coming down to a microphone?
Yes, I am, but I think I'll wait. Well, if we definitely postpone, we can't. Okay.
This may be your only shot.
Yes, it may be. John Hibian from Knoll Drive. This is really a question, and the question is, the way this is written, is it possible for you to hunt on your own property? It sounds like maybe you can't.
So there's a Scrivener's question for the bylaw committee. Mr. Tellerman seems like just the man for this job.
Can I use this?
Yeah, of course, whatever microphone you want. You're answering a question. You can even use this one.
I don't see anything in the bylaw that says that you couldn't hunt on your own property by using these forms. You'd have to sign it as owner and as applicant at the same time. But part of the bylaw, the way we were structuring, and I don't want to get too far afield, is that we would develop the appropriate forms for it after we get the approval for it. We'd have the appropriate waivers and everything else on it. But your question is answered yes.
Anyone else speaking as to the motion to amend, not the underlying article, motion to amend? Yes?
I'd like to have it, the Leon Cook, 9 Sweetland Farm Road. I'd like to have this definitely tabled indefinitely. Is that what I'm supposed to be speaking about now?
Yeah, if that's what you want, that's where you're in the right spot.
I've heard a couple of people talk. There were landowners in the town. They said their property is posted and people still go on it. You have an enforcement problem. You can call the Department of Fisheries, Wildlife, and call them. They'll get the people off your land. That's what they're supposed to do. If the number of hunters in this town decreases, the amount of deer is going to increase. That's going to cause two things: a higher incidence of Lyme disease and more deer-car collisions. It's going to happen. I'm a hunter. I've seen what happens in places where you stop hunting. This is what it is. I hunted in North Carolina last year, and the biggest friend the hunters had down there was the car insurance companies. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. As to whether or not we're going to amend the motion, anyone with anything else they'd like to say?
Jim Giffey, 34 Robin Road. In looking over the article, questions also in regards to improving the article. So, for example, it says, no person shall hunt whether by rifle, shotgun, bow, or crossbow. It doesn't mention doing by black powder or by handgun. So there's two things that are not listed in there that should be. The other, I agree with the concept of the concern about the police chief and the liability that the town will face in that regard. So I'm concerned that I don't think it's finalized in the way it should be yet.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Gail Anderson, Evans Lane. I wanted to speak just to the Lyme's disease portion of what everybody was talking about. Medfield and Dover had actually had special votes to allow a special hunting season where they they selected specific hunters. They applied for this special hunting for deer to reduce the deer population. It wasn't just because of Lyme's disease. It was because of continuing traffic problems and deer running into cars and cars hitting deer. But there have been extensive studies on Lyme's disease, and it's not just carried by deer. It's also carried by all those adorable little chipmunks that are under your bird feeder, and the white-footed mouse is the largest carrier. They've known that in this state for a very long time. they're coming up with new ways. Some people are actually spraying some kind of a extract, a mint and something else extract on their lawns to eliminate the ticks. And to some extent, it's been working. The other point is, when hunters do come out, there are reliable hunters out there. Might surprise you, I'm not against hunting. I'm against reliable hunting. There are few and far between. Usually the accidents occur when someone is so anxious to get a deer, they wheel around and shoot, and now they're in a totally different perimeter. I understand people don't want their rights taken away to hunt, but the area is getting to be no longer suitable for hunting. This even happens in Maine with people getting shot. It's too crowded, it's too congested, and something needs to be done. I also, as everybody else concerned, I don't want to see the police chief have liability for this, so I think it does need to be taken to the state level where the licensing is such that those sorts of things are avoided. There shouldn't be liability on the police for just helping the community.
All right, anyone else? Just on the issue of the motion to amend, not on the underlying motion, just the motion to amend. Looks like we have one last person on the motion to amend.
I am for the amendment. I'm Matthew Noizo, 14 Kingsbury Road. I found this online, drilling down through the clerk's page, and discovered a lot of things. I'm not a hunter. I don't have a license. No one in my family has a gun or a license. But I don't think we're ready yet. There's a few things I've seen omitted in this. I'm recognizing that Medfield was interested in reducing their population. I've read on the net somewhere that people are concerned with coyotes in this town. I'm not really worried about them, but I guess if you live in an area that you're having a problem. This does not address trapping. Trapping is a way you can legally hunt coyotes with traps and guns. It's extremely limited season. Everyone that's being impacted by this in a way of fear, I believe one of the seasons is only 45 days long at the end of the year as well. I also noticed that as it's written, the penalty for a first offense is $300, and everything else that is penalized for this, or similar items like a non-muzzled dog that needs to be muzzled twice, second offense starts at $30, and the language is written up to $300. So I think that can be addressed. The fall town meeting, I would imagine, would be before hunting season. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, seeing no one else at the microphone, currently the question before the floor is whether or not to amend the motion to a motion to indefinitely postpone. Majority is required. All of those in favor of allowing us to amend the motion to a motion to indefinitely postpone, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? No. I think we're going to need to have a hand count. Luckily, I selected 2 willing volunteers before the town meeting. Can I please have Mr. Paul Terrio and Ms. Peg Driscoll-Johnson front and center to be sworn in and take your votes? I think it may have actually been a no. I think the no is going to I know. Oh, you're going to swear me in. I was ready for duty. I know, right? All right, so which you're going to take that side, and then you take the stage. Yeah, I will take advisory, stage, and skinny side, and take the big side. Okay. All right? Then come back and report if we did the game. All right, folks, here we go. When I say, yeah, oh, you want something to write it down?
Point of privilege. Could you explain again exactly what it's going to mean when this vote is taken?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So what we're going to do right now we're deciding whether or not we're going to amend the motion that's currently on the floor. So for folks who remember back about 45 minutes ago, there was a motion to approve a bylaw. That was immediately, Jack Hathaway came up and moved to amend that motion to a motion to indefinitely postpone. So right now we're deciding whether or not we can even consider the motion to indefinitely postpone. This is whether or not to amend the motion to a motion to indefinitely postpone. We'll start with the yeas. When I say don't do it yet, I want you to hold your card up nice and high and hold it up till I say take it down. And the vote counters are going to count those cards. And then when they're done with that, they're going to write it down. We'll remember it. They're going to report it to me. I'm going to write it down. And then we're going to go to the nays. I will read both of those votes once I have both votes, not before. All right. All of those in favor of of amending the motion to a motion to indefinitely postpone, please hold up your cards. This is the ayes. The yeses can put their cards down. All right. All of those opposed to the motion to amend, please hold up your cards. All right. What's 18 plus 30? We're just doing some ciphering now. You can put your card down. All right. The yeas, or ayes, were 73. The nays were 54. The ayes carry. The motion before the floor is currently whether or not to indefinitely postpone Article 25. Does anybody like to be heard on whether or not to indefinitely postpone Article 25 that has something different to say than what they said on the motion to amend? Yes, sir.
Madam Moderator, Rob Garrity, Board of Selectmen. I just conferred with my other board member. We promise you this will come back in the fall. This was not a vote against this article. It was a vote to make sure we get the right language in it before we do something momentous. Speaking for me only, it's incomprehensible that you don't have the control over your own private property to tell people no and that they have to check with you. So it will come back in the fall, but in a form that everyone can live with. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Currently before the floor, we're going to do this by a voice count. All of those in favor of indefinitely postponing Article 25, please say aye. Nice and loud. Aye. All of those opposed? No. Aye. Okay, I think that one's too close to call as well, so my friendly vote counters are back out at it. Okay, everybody, we're going to start with the ayes. Everybody with an aye, cards in the air, nice and high so they can get counted. Do you think it'll be interesting to see the difference? That's what I'm saying. We don't have one really super, what do we, for time? It's 10, we still have an hour. Yeah. And we still have 1, 2, 5, 4 IPs. Keep your hands up, we're doing a double count. Everybody who's an I, please put your hand back up because they're doing a double count. I mean, they're counting again, they're not counting them up. I don't want any letters. No, well, I mean, this is when it's tomorrow night. Wait, that's the So that's everyone who did an I, correct? Okay. Hands down, ready for the no's. All of those against, cards in the air. What's 36 plus 20?
Oh, that's going to be close.
They're double counting.
Okay, put your hands down. 15 plus 35. 50. People left. All right. So at first I couldn't understand the discrepancy, but I think we've had some people leave between the original vote and this one. That makes sense. So majority is required. The yeas were 64 and the nays were 50. The article is indefinitely postponed. Article 26. Thank you, vote counters. Leave that there just in case, Paul.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 26 as printed in the warrant. Second. This article is to accept a deed of land which is currently held by the treasurer for unpaid taxes.
People sneak out quietly.
It's up here as well.
Advisory board's talking. She's going to try it again now that the people have decided to leave more quietly. Plus, it's up here.
It's up here as well. Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 26 as printed in the warrant. Thank you. This is an article to accept a deed of land which is currently held by the treasurer for unpaid real estate taxes.
Is there any other comments?
That's it.
Any other questions or comments relative to Article 26? Seeing no one on a microphone. All those in favor of Article 26, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. A majority was required. Article 27.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 27 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Again, this is an article to accept a deed of land, which is currently held by the treasurer for unpaid real estate taxes.
Anyone with a question or comment relative to Article number 27? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor of Article 27, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. A majority was required. Article 28.
Madam Moderator, I move to indefinitely postpone this article. This is a change as it was printed in the warrant. So we learned just prior to town meeting that there is not a clear title on this deed of land. So,
do we have a seconding? All of those in favor of indefinitely postponing Article 28 due to lack of clear title, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes carry it. Article 29.
Madam Moderator, I move that we accept Article 29 as printed with one change that I'm going to point out to people. As printed, it used the word public ways, so that's in the first line. It's going to now read, I move to accept parcels A and B as shown on a plan recorded with the Norfolk Registry of Deeds, and the rest is on the screen.
Is there a second? Second. Is there someone here from the Planning Board to speak on Article 29?
On Toils End Road, this road has a long history in this town, and it's been in court several times, and it's not clearly a public way or not clearly a private way. So in order to keep everything straight, we want to make sure that we get rid of any reference to a public way. We just want to refer to it as a way. These properties are being donated to the town. We're going to be taking them as a gift. And the reason they are being given is so that we can, in the future, as the roadway gets developed, we'll be able to widen the road to bring it up to the standards of the new roadways that are constructed in the town. The amount of right-of-way that exists in that area right now is not wide enough to be able to put a full-size road in. So what happened was that when we accept the lots A and B, the person who donated the land actually donated it to another developer to develop the roadway that's being put in now. And what happened was he cut himself off and no longer has frontage along the constructed roadway. So therefore, if the town takes control of these parcels A and B, the original owner of A and B now have frontage to be able to develop their property. So I don't believe that the person from the advisory board mentioned that there are two places in this article where we want to strike the word public. So let me see which. Is there? Do you have it right there? I have the public ways there, and it's also down here.
Okay, after existing.
Yeah. So that would be your motion, is to strike both
Gotcha.
public and public.
Okay, so it's as printed on the slide.
Yeah. So the motion is as printed on the slide. Is there anyone with a question or comment relative to Article 29?
Cindy Andrade, Worcester Road. Just a quick question. I know you've got the plan and the page and all, but could you tell me what this connects to exactly as to other roads?
This is actually it's a cul-de-sac off of Grove Street.
Anyone else with a question or comment as to Article 29 as it appears on the board? Seeing no one at a microphone, this is the majority that is required. All of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. A majority was required. The ayes carry. Article 30.
Madam Moderator, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 30. The advisory board is recommending indefinite postponement at the recommendation of the planning board.
So I don't think we need to hear from the planning board about their motion to indefinitely postpone. Does anyone have a question or comment relative to the motion to indefinitely postpone?
David Rosenberg, North Street. I would like to hear from the planning board about their reason for deciding to indefinitely postpone.
Although the road appears to be fully constructed, there's a punch list that hasn't been completed. So anytime there's a punch list where it hasn't been completed, we always try to remove it and bring it back again when everything's done.
All of those in favor of indefinitely postponing Article 30, please say aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Article 31.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 31 as printed in the warrant. Once again, a road acceptance. This time it is a public way, so that's kind of exciting. At the recommendation of the planning board.
Someone from the planning board to speak briefly on Article 31.
Yeah, the planning board also recommends accepting this roadway.
Thank you. Is this shown on an approved subdivision plan, Mr. Representative? Yes, it is. All of those in favor of passing of Article 31, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Article 32.
Madam Moderator, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 32, again at the recommendation of the planning board.
Before bringing the planning board up, was there any questions or comments relative to the indefinite postponement of Article 32? Yes. Planning board, oh, there's a question. We'll have the planning board at the ready.
I'm right here.
He's in our back pocket, but not really.
Patricia St. Aubin, Shady Way. Just why is this being postponed, please?
It's the same reason as Liberty Lane. There's a punch list of repairs that have to be done to the roadway, and the original developer hasn't completed it.
He's gone.
I mean, we're holding some money, and you would think that he'd want to get back and get his money back, and just because the punch list is not extraordinary.
Thank you. Are there any other questions as to the motion to indefinitely postpone Article 32? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor of indefinitely postponing Article 32, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? It is unanimous. Article 33.
Madam Moderator, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 33. This is the last road acceptance, I believe, and again, at the recommendation of the planning board, this was not deemed fit to accept.
Is there anyone with a question or comment relative to indefinitely postponing Article 33? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor of the indefinite postponement of Article 33, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Article 34.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 34 as written in the warrant. This article pertains to the time allowed for the Historical Commission to review demolition permits of homes 75 years or older in the town. The current bylaw allows for only a 14-day review period, which is not satisfactory time period for the volunteer commission to review all of the permits. We feel that increasing this to 45 days or an incremental increase of 31 days will allow for adequate review of all of the permit requests.
Does anyone have a question or comment relative to Article 34? Looks like someone's sashaying to the microphone. Just try to keep, yes, that's much better.
David Lutz from 15 Pondry Road. I'm wondering if anyone from the Historic Commission can tell me how many properties in town might be covered by the 75-year rule in this bylaw.
Someone from the Historical Commission is working their way, I won't say sashaying twice, that would be boring, to answer the question.
I'm Betsy Pine. I live on 187 Seekonk Street, and I'm the chairman of the Historical Commission. We have a survey of significant architectural buildings that contains 120, 130 buildings, and there may be several others. It may be closer to 180, or they're not all in the architectural survey. So there are quite a number.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question relative to Article 34? Seeing no one on a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 34 as in the warrant, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. A majority was required. Article 35.
Madam Moderator, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 35. This is an article that was brought forward as a result of a particular business wanting to get a liquor license. And although we believe it may be appropriate for Norfolk to have an extra liquor license, we didn't think it was appropriate for town meeting to issue the exact license. That's really that's the authority of the Board of Selectmen. So we're recommending indefinite postponement of that.
Does anyone have a question or comment relative to the indefinite postponement of Article 35? I like how you got closer to the microphone this time.
Yeah, I missed one shot where I wanted to ask a question. So I'd like a little more information. Assuming that this is IP'd, then what would be the procedure that takes place when somebody requests an additional liquor license?
Can anyone answer the question?
If I understood the question correctly, you said if this is IP'd, then we wouldn't have another liquor license, so there's no need to apply. If I jump ahead to the next question, then we'll have one additional liquor license after we go through the legislative process, state legislature process. Then we would have one additional license that the selectmen could consider that license, but it would be open to any retail applicant.
I believe there's someone ahead of you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was a minority of one.
Can you identify yourself?
Oh, yeah,
for the
sorry.
record?
Pat Sneed, Frederickson Road. I was a minority of one on the advisory committee to support this article. The concern expressed by the majority was that it usurped the selectmen's authority to grant the license. But I don't believe the wording says that. It says that the licensing authority may grant an additional license, which is that they may or they may not grant it, depending on whether or not they find the petitioner suitable for the license. So it authorizes them to pursue the license, then they may grant it, but they may not. So I don't see this as usurping their authority, and I thought the pursuit of an additional liquor license would be a good thing for the town. It would then be up to the selectmen to decide whether or not the petitioner qualified for it.
At the yes microphone on the motion to indefinitely postpone, please identify yourself for the record.
Rob Garrity, Boardman Street. It would allow, yes, it would give discretion whether or not to grant a liquor license to this one certain establishment. And we couldn't give it to anybody else if we didn't want to give it to that one certain establishment. And thus, really, short circuits what should be a process of applicants coming forward and appropriately applying and being considered.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Thank you. So, again, I just want to understand what's going on. Assuming this is IP'd, do the selectmen currently have the authorization to go to the legislature to petition for an additional license, or do they need that from the town meeting? And assuming this is IP'd, would the intent of the selectmen be to petition for another license?
I hate to spoil the ending, but Article 36 grants us the authority to go for one more generic license.
Mr. Sneed, do you have another no to IP comment that you'd like to make?
Yes, I would merely point out that Article 35 in combination with Article 36 would give us 2 additional licenses, which I would see as a good
Well
thing.
played, Mr. Sneed, well played. All right, seeing no one else at a microphone over an Article IP, all of those in favor of indefinitely postponing Article 35, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Majority was all that was required. The ayes carry it. That article is indefinitely postponed. Article 36.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 36 as printed in the warrant. Again, this is, gives the town meeting approves this. This gives the Board of Selectmen the authority to look at applicants for a liquor license and give that license to who they deem appropriate.
Anyone with some questions or comments relative to Article 36, please come on up to a microphone. Identifying yourself for the record.
David Lutz, 15 Pondview Road. I'm just curious if there's been any consideration of supporting an uncapped liquor license process. I know there are other communities in the state who have pursued that. It seems like a way that some communities are going.
Mr. Garrity,
Rob Garrity.
speaking on all things liquor license, apparently.
I spent 3 miserable years at the Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation, which oversaw liquor licenses, so I'm the designated liquor license person. I'm actually not aware of any such piece of legislation. When you look back, if you go through the legislation filed by, signed by the governor every year, you'll find 300 bills, and about 20 of them are liquor license for this guy, liquor license for that guy. I'm not aware of any uncapped, and no, there's no consideration of it, and I wouldn't support it if there were. Mr. Lutz, thank you.
Jay Tallerman, 11 Chickadee Drive. More of a comment than a recommendation, yes or no. The ABCC does frown. I've just had this experience in another town where I work, does frown on these generic excess ones, and if in the census you get another license by your population, they'll count this against it. So if people are voting for it, it's not truly an additional one above and beyond. If our population increases, there will cease to be an extra one. So just so everyone knows, it's not truly this uncapped license, and ABCC has been a little sour on these.
Would you like to comment?
I would just like to answer. It is true that
You're a voter, you get another bite.
Okay. I'm answering a question, actually.
Well, that wasn't a question,
Clarifying
so.
statement. It's true that most of the liquor licenses have been approved for specific places. It is true that this would count against us for another license if we were to get one, but we're not close to getting another one, another all alcohol. We have plenty of beer and wines, if anyone wants to open a beer and wine downtown, but we have no more all alcohols.
Thank you. Seeing no one else at a microphone, relative to Article 36, which requires a majority vote, all of those in favor of approval of Article 36, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? The ayes carry it. Article 37.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 37 as printed in the warrant. Thank you. This is just a way to manage the Regional Emergency Communications Center that's being worked on through the grants that Jack talked about earlier. It's because you're involving a number of different towns, you have to have a management authority to deal with that, because otherwise, if it ends up in Rentham, you're dependent on Rentham, obviously, to manage it. This way, this creates a governance body that has every town has an equal right, equal say in exactly how that dispatch center is managed.
Is there anyone with a question or a comment relative to Article 37? Someone's coming down to the microphone.
John Nahibian from Knoll Drive. I have a question. Just, this sounds like a good idea, certainly, but I'm wondering what kind of compatibility do we have between communications equipment? Are we going to incur a lot of expenses? Maybe, I don't know if the chief's still here, but perhaps he could comment on it.
Chuck Stone. Walking down to the microphone. Couldn't think of anything better than that. That's best. It's best I got it at 10:26.
I was going to save Jim from having to come down. Chuck Stone, 7 Priscilla Ave, Chief of Police. We have been working on this now for a couple of years. Radio is compatible, computer systems are compatible. The dispatching, the way we dispatch cruisers and fire apparatus is very close. We're hoping, maybe not in the early stages, but in the long run to try to save some money. But certainly, what we're trying to do in the beginning is to improve your service. We've certainly looked at all the things that we're going to need to do, and one of them is, since we're moving our dispatchers to the town of Rentham, if this goes forward, we need to be able to have access to the station by a video camera and a phone, and that will be in a couple of places in the lobby so that you'll be able to do that. A lot of provisions being made, a lot of technology makes this so possible. Certainly, we feel that it's going to improve the service. June 30th of this year, they have a new law that's been passed. It has to do with EMD. Once the dispatcher takes an emergency medical dispatch call, they can't release that call until paramedics sign off at your scene, wherever that scene might be. So that means that anyone like me or anyone else that calls in for any other apparatus, somebody comes to the window, a phone call comes in, they're no longer able to take that call. They must get you through your emergency medical call till the end. And the end being when the paramedics sign off and they're now talking. Say, okay, they're there, okay, good, you take over. So there's a lot of things, a lot of irons in the fire right now. We're working at this, meeting regularly with Rentham, Plainville, and Franklin. Everybody brings something really good to the table as far as the ability to put the service forward, and all four towns are working very hard to make it happen. So.
Thank you. Is anyone else with a question or comment relative to Article 37? Seeing no one at or approaching a microphone, all of those in favor of Article 37, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? It is unanimous. Majority was all that was required. Article 38.
Okay, the final article. Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 38 as printed in the warrant with the change listed on the screen. I believe we have a slide for that. No. I guess I can read it in.
Why don't you read it in? Because there was supposed to be a slide. Oh, there it is.
Oh, yes.
I don't think
it's the section in blue, which nobody can read, so I'll read it.
Yeah, so why don't you read that?
Okay, so again, I'll read the sentence that it amends, so I'll start there. The floodplain also includes all land bordering on the river segments that lies below the elevations listed in paragraph D5E3 below. Now here comes the new part. And shown as floodplain proposed NAV D88 overlies other districts, unquote, on the, quote, floodplain map, Norfolk, Massachusetts, scale 1 inch equals 1,000 feet, prepared for the Norfolk Planning Board May 8, 2012, unquote, and is on file in the town clerk's office. In case of conflict between the provisions of section D5E2, section D5E3, and the floodplain map, Norfolk, Massachusetts, dated May 8, 2012, the higher elevation shall govern. The floodplain delineated on the zoning map, Norfolk, Massachusetts, prepared for the Norfolk Planning Board May 19, 2010, is null and void. So that ends the new language, which is basically a clarification and elaboration.
Thank you. Do we have someone from, yeah, there he is. Someone from Planning Board.
Stephen McLean, Norfolk Planning Board, the moderator, didn't catch me the last 5 or 6 times I was up here. I never said my name.
Yeah, but you were just the Planning Board guy. I didn't need anything other than Planning Board guy.
As you can see, this is a pretty complicated issue. The new firm maps came out from the federal government, and in order for people that live within a flood plain to get insurance, we have to accept these firm maps. And once we started looking at this with the local overlays that they have in various sections of town, we realized it got incredibly complicated. So we have our planning board consultant here to explain where the problem arose and what the new map will look like. This is Tom Houston from PSC.
Because he's explaining it, he's not saying that.
Okay, so should I wait till he's done?
Sure.
Thank you. Under the current bylaw, there is a dual structure defining the floodplain in 2 ways. One way it's defined is by reference to The second way is a local definition. With respect to the federally defined floodplain, currently the bylaw references the firm map for the town of Norfolk, which is dated in 1985. The new map that Mr. McLean mentioned is dated July 17th of this year. And there aren't fundamental differences between the old and the new map. Fundamentally, it's a format change. The map has a new date. Currently, there's one map that covers the whole town. Under the new format, there's actually a grid system covering all of Norfolk County, so we have to reference more than one plan sheet. There's one other change, and this gets a little bit technical. There's a change in datum between the old map and the new map. What the change in datum means is that there'll be a different numerical value that will describe the same vertical elevation between the two maps. By way of example, if the front step of your house under the old map had an elevation of 100.8, under the new map it will have an elevation of 100.0. The difference in datums is 0.8 feet. The flood surface isn't changing, and in my example, the real position of the front steps of your house are not changing, but they're being assigned a different numerical value. This new value is based upon NABD 88. It's a more technically accurate depiction of sea level from which the elevations are referenced. It's being used in engineering studies. It's being used on the Mass GIS website. So the new flood map uses a different datum. By incorporating the new floodplain by reference, we take care of all the changes and bring Norfolk's map into compliance with state standards and also with the standard maps that would be used by insurance companies in writing flood insurance. It's a ministerial change. If your house was in a floodplain under the old map, it'll be in a floodplain under the new map. If you were outside a floodplain under the old map, you'll be outside the floodplain under the new map. But it is something that all communities in Norfolk County are being encouraged to adopt the new map. We also have a locally defined bylaw. And there are some technical problems with the local bylaw, and it also needs to be revised. The technical bylaw is based upon a study that dates back to 1973. The town of Norfolk was really on the forefront in adopting floodplain legislation as early as the 70s. Most towns did not adopt floodplain legislation until the mid-80s. So Norfolk was in the forefront. And it's actually a very credible technical study. The problem with it is that the language of the bylaw and actually a depiction of the 1973 flood elevations on the zoning map somehow became inaccurate. About a third of the elevations listed in the bylaw are consistent with the 1973 study. About a third are higher, about a third are lower. Another technical problem is that over a given reach of river, the bylaw in language assigns a level elevation to that reach of river. It's fine along the Charles, which is pretty flat, but there are other reaches of river that are steeply sloped. So if you hold a level floodplain at one end, by the time you get to the other end of the river, the floodplain might be defined as 10 feet above the land surface, which doesn't make sense. The other problem is there's significant differences between the depiction of those same flood elevations on the zoning map and the text of the bylaw. There are numerical differences, and also the depiction on the zoning map only covers about 25% of the reach of the river that are described in text in the bylaw.
30 seconds.
We're going to fix all of it by adopting the map that you're seeing up here. It's fundamentally based upon the new federal map. We've added 1 foot to the elevations on the federal map in certain key areas along the Charles and the Stop River. What that does is it provides a factor of safety. Currently, the areas defined by the federal map have about a 1% chance per year of being flooded. This lowers it to about 0.2% in these additional protected areas.
Thank you. Just as a housekeeping measure before anybody speaks or asks a question, Mr. McLean, AKA Planning Board guy, did the Planning Board vote favorably?
Yes.
All right. Is that good enough, Madam Town Council? All righty. Those of you who'd like to be heard with questions or comments as to Article 38, please approach a microphone. I know, actually, there's this woman right here who'd been waiting and standing and then sitting, and I don't want her to get missed. Just identify yourself first for the record.
Kyle Pribish, Leland Road. I was hoping someone could discuss or describe why the 1 foot, while it seems somewhat arbitrary to add 1 foot in terms of the local Norfolk floodplain, and explain it. I hear a lot about how it doesn't change the floodplain, but it actually does. So the airport, for example, it changes it somewhat significantly. And so being next to a hydraulic pond, if that pond comes back, we're looking at significant changes. So I just imagine that, I don't know, I understand that part of this we have to adopt, and then there's part of it that it doesn't seem like we have to adopt in terms of the arbitrary 1 foot. The property I'm thinking about next to the Mill River, we're talking about a difference of 3 feet from the old Norfolk floodplain to the current, or what's being proposed as the new Norfolk floodplain. So I was hoping someone could speak to that, explain how that benefits us.
Thank you. Can someone answer her question? Mr. Houston?
The reason that we chose 1 foot is it appears that that was the factor of safety which was built into the bylaw that's based upon the 1973 flood study. There are areas, particularly along the Charles River, where it looks like they took the 100-foot elevation and added a foot. Coincidentally, by adding a foot, as I mentioned, you provide an added level of protection. And it's something like increasing the level of protection from a 1% chance per year of getting flooded to a 0.2% chance of getting flooded. We did it along the major water courses, the Stop River and the Charles River. With respect to the airport, and again, we have to work this datum change in here, the difference is about 2 feet, not 3 feet. I do think, you could argue that a particular area of town requires additional protection, but we were concerned about consistency. We thought that we'd use this constant value over any area that we defined a local floodplain. It seemed as though 1 foot made sense in terms of the incremental protection without being confiscatory by including excessive additional areas within the floodplain. Seemed a reasonable compromise to us.
Thank you. Someone else? You want to go back to there you go. Next person who is in line, please.
Peg Rabasco, Leland Road. My concern about the airport field is that with the 1 foot, it does make much more of the field developable. And that's where we're saying that, geez, why can't we put 2 feet in and we would protect a very important part of our town. We just want to keep that area protected from development, and we're just asking you to please consider a 2-foot number because that would protect it, and we don't know why we can't do that. What justification do we have for allowing that to be developed versus not developed?
Okay. So before someone gets up to answer that, because I suspect the next question may also be relative to the airport. Yeah. So let's bundle them. Watching the time, I'm not trying to rush anybody, but if we have a couple of questions that can be answered by one person, that might make sense.
Okay, Kyle Purvish, Leland Road again. My question was just about, maybe I'm reading this incorrectly, and I apologize if I'm wasting people's time, but I'm seeing on the new proposal here that at the airport, it's 137, and on the old numbers, it's 140. So that would be 3 feet, correct?
All right, so you're going to speak to the questions relative to the airport.
Andrea Langhauser, recently re-elected to the planning board. Thank you very much. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, look at that. You can barely see it. The first question that Peg Rabasco asked was about added development protection. And what we're dealing with, what we would like to deal with in this bylaw change is to address just the floodplain elevations and just the protections that are needed for potential flooding in the area. As our professional engineer has described, and everyone knows I'm not a professional engineer, we can justify a 1-foot elevation, and we can justify the increased amount of protection with adding that 1 foot in a local bylaw. So we do it consistently across all the tributaries of the Charles. We feel that we're representing the town's interest best. But to get to the development of a particular area, we have another tool in our toolbox. That's the Local Wetlands Protection Act and the State Protection Act. An area that's floodplain merely speaks to that area that when it rains an awful lot, the rivers are going to overflow their banks to a particular area. It doesn't speak to the other type of wetland areas that are often associated with floodplains and are scattered throughout the airport. Those other wetland areas continue to have all the protection that the state law and the wetlands local bylaw have, and are in pretty much the same areas here. So the floodplain is a separate issue from its development potential, and you might want to speak to the color coding difference because it is so small a change that I don't see it well.
Aye.
Hello.
This slide shows, and the color isn't really, thank you. Yeah. Yes, it is terrible. Thank you. This area here, I think, is the area of concern overlying the airport. The horizontal extent of the change, it occurs along the edge of this red area where the newly defined floodplain at elevation 137, it's hard to describe, but it probably comes in 100 to 200 feet narrower than the old bylaw did here. So we are removing protection from that intervening area. But whenever you're writing zoning, you make judgment calls about balancing environmental protection versus being confiscatory and impinging unnecessarily on people's property rights. I think the 1 foot is defensible because there's a history of it here in Norfolk. Also in terms of a percent of protection, going from 1% to about 0.2%. That's something like, by the way, going from the 100-year flood to the 500-year flood. and there's guidelines by the Federal Water Resources Council about critical facilities being protected from the 500-year flood. I think there's significant precedent for using 1 foot. If you go more than that, certainly you provide additional environmental protection, but there would be a concern about it being legally defensible, in my judgment.
Thank you. Please identify yourself for the record. This is your second time at the microphone.
Peg Rabasco, Leland Road. The last time this property came up for development, it was the flood zone that made all the difference as far as how many houses were going to be allowed and what was going to happen there, and it fell through because they couldn't get enough houses, and it was exactly that made the difference. So I think it will make the difference in the future as far as development of the land. The flood zone is what they look at. And secondly, all we're asking for is actually just to take it back to the rest of the town, to Concom and everyone else, and let them debate how many feet. Instead of saying right now, 1 foot, that's it, we should definitely go with 1 foot. How about allowing the rest of the town's committees to look at this issue in detail, study it, and then come back to the town and decide whether to vote for it or not. So that's all we're saying is please let us study the local, because it does have a big impact on our town, and it's a very important part of our town, this 100 acres of field. So please consider that.
At the yes microphone.
Aaron Alex, North Street. Just a little background on vertical datum. I first ran across it when I was a superintendent building the Bristol Community College, which is right next to Route 24. After we built the college, 100 acres of buildings, parking lot, we found that the datum being used by the city of Fall River was 1'6" lower than what we were doing. So you're talking apples and oranges when you go to build. In fact, if you could ever get on out at Long Island Hospital, out Boston Harbor, there's a beautiful 6-foot plaque, all solid brass, showing you exactly what that height is. And that's one of the areas vertical datum is taken from. So you got apples, oranges, and we got fruitcake here in this town. We got a little here, a little there. But as far as I know, it's 1'6" is the difference between different datums. The town might have picked its own datum, but there is a national geographical datum that everything should go from.
I'm going to assume that I'm not the fruitcake of which you are speaking. And I see Mr. Lutz potentially at the no microphone.
David Lutz, 15 Pondview Road. It's actually a question. There was some mention of the Conservation Commission having jurisdiction over wetlands areas, and also I'm just curious if anyone from the Conservation Commission, did the Conservation Commission review this before it was brought before town meeting, and if there's anyone from the Conservation Commission who can comment on that.
Do we have anyone from Concom here?
This came to the planning board submitted by someone like the Board of Selectmen, and we were just asked to make a recommendation from the planning board's perspective. We didn't seek other opinion.
Thank you. Anyone else at the yes microphone? Or the no microphone?
I hate this microphone.
Well,
Like it to be a middle, what happened to the middle one?
we got rid of it because we were afraid you'd trip over it.
No, I'm afraid it won't work. Matthew Noyeso, 14 Kingsbury Road. This issue was floated out in Precinct 2 by the airport. I talked to people from the planning board, and they said, no, this is datums and 8.8 feet, and no problem, it's not a big deal. It's nothing to do with the airport. And then it took 2 people at the end of town meeting at close to 11 to find out it is about the airport. And lo and behold, it's 1 foot to the good, but except the airport is 2 feet to the bad. So where a neighbor of mine said, hey, we used to catch fish on that pond that's drying up, but it's still a pond. That pond is now going to be buildable because you've lowered almost 100 acres is now going to be buildable. I don't see the landowner here. I don't see the developer here of that plot. But that's what we are talking about. It's lo and behold, into this issue, 20 minutes into it, we find out it is about the airport. It's going to help the airport. I don't see any other person who lives in a floodplain coming down here and saying, this is going to help me. I expected to see a few people say, this is a great idea. It's going to be a relief for me. I can do my septic system, and I would be now listening to hear their pleas and say, okay, maybe we'll pass up on this. It absolutely affects the way the airport is going to be developed, and I'm glad that that's been shown to light before our vote. Thank you.
And
I'd like to say this is not about the airport. This is something that came from the federal government. This is the firm map. This is the insurance rate map. That's what this all started as. We added the extra protection of adding a foot. And we added the foot in the areas that are prone to flooding, the ones that, the Stop River and the Charles River. This did not come before the planning board as a result of any developer that came before the planning board or anything else. That has nothing to do with this. So don't even think about the fact that people have been spreading rumors that the planning board is trying to help somebody bring some development into this area of town. This did not start with the airport. This is something that came to the town. This is a new map. In order for people that live in floodplains, they have to have the map to be able to know whether or not they live within the floodplain, and the town has to adopt it for them to be able to get the insurance. That's what this has to do with. We added a little bit extra protection. The map doesn't look exactly like the old map because this is a defendable map. The old map that we had was not defendable. The numbers that were written into the bylaw had nothing to do with the map that was drawn, and it had nothing to do with the study that the numbers were based on. So this is a defendable map. That's why the map is before town meeting.
thank you. Mr. Rosenberg?
I have a question. I have 100% faith that the planning board was not trying to facilitate development, but what I'm unclear about is whether the adoption of this modification will in fact facilitate development, even though that wasn't the intention. That is, will it be possible to do development in areas that it was not possible to do under the previous map?
Can anyone speak to that question?
Not to that question, no.
That's a big one. How developable is a piece of land? And, I've been doing enough land development work to say that nobody should answer that question with any confidence unless there's an engineering plan for that particular piece of property. I suspect that the airport property has a floodplain and a series of wetland areas that are going to have, and those areas have not been mapped out. And therefore, we are not talking about any particular development proposal, because when a particular conceptual plan came forward, we told him to come back with an engineering plan. Because in this particular piece of land, this particular airport property, there are a lot of sensitive environmental areas. There are vernal pools, there are bordering vegetated wetlands. There's an Army Corps flood easement that doesn't allow development. So I don't think the development potential of a particular property is a valid reason for choosing a flood elevation for a town bylaw.
Thank you. Anyone at the no microphone? I know there was some. Please identify yourself for the record.
Charlotte Richardson, Leland Road. I guess I'm just confused. I understand the federal change. Is it actually going to change the local floodplain map, the local one, that the Conservation Committee would look at?
So the question, do you have any more questions than that one? Or is that, so the question is, Will this change the local floodplain map? Mr. Houston?
May I answer another part of a question that was asked earlier?
Sure.
First,
You got
conservation.
nothing but time, Mr. Lehan, nothing but time.
Thank you kindly, Madam Moderator. Conservation was consulted on this first. That question was asked, and yes, it was given to Conservation for the recommendations. Just to clarify where this all came from, this came down from Town Council. Town Council recommended to us, and has every other town, that we adopt the FEMA map. If we do not adopt that, people cannot get flood insurance. That's one of the driving considerations for having brought this forward. We passed it on to the other boards for their consideration, and what in fact they have done is they have made it more restrictive rather than just following the FEMA map. This was not brought forward because of any developer, any considerations for development. I know of no instance where that was ever part of this conversation. This was brought down, as I say, and recommended by Town Council.
Except for the local.
Excuse me, no, this is not a conversation. This is town meeting, and if you have your 2 times at the mic, you can find someone else to write a question for you, but you don't address the other person at the mic. Thank you. Anyone else at the yes or no microphone?
Tom Houston was going to answer the...
Okay, Mr. Houston?
If you look at a plan view, there is no change in the horizontal extent of the floodplain as defined by the federal mapping. There is a change in the horizontal extent of the floodplain as locally defined. However, I would caution you that the locally defined floodplain is so grossly inaccurate and inconsistent that I do not think it is defensible. Yes, the existing locally defined floodplain is so grossly inaccurate and inconsistent that it can't be defended. The newly proposed locally defined bylaw, which is 1 foot substantially more restrictive than the federal mapping, is legally defensible. It is consistent with the federal mapping, but is more conservative than it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one at a yes or no microphone, it's time for the vote. Article 38. All of those in favor of approval of Article 38 as it appeared on the board, in addition to the warrant, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? No. 2/3 required. I heard 2/3 for the yeas. The ayes carry. Article 38 is approved.
Good.
I'm good.
Madam Moderator, I move to dissolve this town meeting.
All of those in favor of dissolution of this town meeting, before you walk out? Aye. Opposed?